Liancourt, France. 5 minutes to go to the start of the 1999 French Grand Prix, the last in France of the millennium. And there is absolutely no doubt at all, because of the fragmented nature of the grid, that it's going to be a quite incredible race. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the safety car coming out because of rain coming down.
Well, we'll have to see. The weather will obviously make its own mind up later on, but I do tend to agree with you, Mary. If we have the amount of standing water we had yesterday, they have two types of wets, a soft and a hard, but none of them have any deeper grooves, and the cars just cannot clear the standing water. You're seeing the Mercedes-Benz safety car going round there now. The significance of that is they've clearly decided not to start the race using it, so it's now going to be parked at the back, and it's obvious to see why, because the track is bone dry. But that is a procedural thing as he goes round to form up behind the cars as an emergency vehicle off the start. There's one guy, I think, who it is a topsy-turvy grid, but I think Barrichello has got a car underneath him that's fast enough, wet or dry, to actually have a pretty good run at this race. I don't think, frankly, that Alesi's car, he's on the front row of the grid and getting a good luck shake there from boss Peter Sauber. I don't think Alesi or Panis have quite got the speed to fend off Coulthard, Michael Schumacher and people like that coming through who are a bit out of position on the grid after that wild qualifying session yesterday. So surprised to see Barrichello with a dark visor on there, and that's a big problem if it does rain, seeing where you're going. The water, you can see the rip-offs, he's got 3 or 4 on there, the plastic shields they pull off. What happens, the water gets driven up in between them, and you can't see anything at all then, and it'll be like looking through somebody else's glasses. You just can't see anything at all. And I'm very surprised to see so many, there's Alesi again, so many drivers with not only there's 3 types of visor, clear, medium and dark, and both of those guys have got the darkest visor on, and the sun's not even shining.
One blessing about this track is that when they start, they haven't got a corner right on top of them, which is going to slow them down and cause collisions, I hope, unlike Montreal, unlike Monaco, for instance.
I hear what you're saying, Murray, but there is that left kink grand curb, and it's easily flat out, as we've seen when they're on a normal lap, but it does tend to focus them and funnel them all into the same point, and we have seen a few dramas there before they have to fall into line astern for turn 2, the Estoril corner. And there's another rerun of the grid positions for the start of this French Grand Prix.
Well, one thing is absolutely for sure, watch at the back of the grid Eddie Irvine, watch just ahead of him, 14th on the left-hand side of the grid, Mika Häkkinen. Let your eyes go forward a bit and it'll be 6th Michael Schumacher. Ahead of him, literally directly in front of him, David Coulthard. 2 men that must be very fancied for this race. But as we've said before, we'll say again, and we'll soon see whether we're right. Rubens Barrichello could be the man. Let us not forget that Rubens Barrichello is no tyro. He's not new to this motor racing game. This is going to be his 103rd Grand Prix, and he actually led the Brazilian Grand Prix this year in the Stewart Ford for 27 laps. So if Barrichello can get away well, and if Alesi gets away well and Panis does the same thing, we could, as I said earlier on, see an opportunity for Barrichello to break away.
I'd put good money on it that the 3 drivers who are way back down the grid, Irvine and Hill and Häkkinen, that their cars were too low yesterday. The ride height of the car, statically and dynamically, too low. And as soon as you get too much standing water, they become surfboards, effectively. We've already said the tyres can't clear the water, but also the plank, as they call it, underneath the car tends to surf along on the top, and some drivers had the confidence to nail the car down the straight, and others just couldn't keep it going in a straight line at all. And it could be a matter of a couple of 3 millimetres, just over 1/4 of an inch of ride height underneath the car.
Well, that was Jean Alesi getting good luck wishes from his team around him, the Sauber team, the man from Avignon and Nyon, and there he is with a completely clear track in front of him. Away he goes for the formation lap with Rubens Barrichello. There's the white Stewart leading away.
Jean Alesi getting a bit of a stormer there and realising he had to get out of it, because if you effectively pass, which he would have done, pole sitter Rubens Barrichello. He'd have been in trouble there.
Like Schumacher at the British Grand Prix.
Absolutely.
So you can see they're out of the Estoril bend now, coming down. They'll be doing about 180, 190 miles an hour as they approach Adelaide, the second gear, turn 3. That is it. You've seen the lap with Martin from a driver's point of view. So next up is the Nürburgring chicane, sweeping right and left and then into the 180.
Should point out that in the warm-up, Coulthard was fastest just ahead of Irvine and Michael Schumacher in the 2 Ferraris. But again, it was in the wet, albeit some 6 seconds a lap faster than the pole position, purely because there was a bit less standing water. So Coulthard seems pretty confident in his car, wet or dry, and he'll be keen to get off the start line. Otherwise, you're going to have Michael Schumacher bearing down on him, and he needs some points today. Coulthard must score some points, must not let Hakkinen and co get too far ahead of him. And really, he's also carrying the baton for the McLaren team, because Mika Häkkinen's got a lot of overtaking to do.
There's an unusual sight then. Barrichello in the unique sight. Barrichello in the Stewart Ford leads on the formation lap from a darting and dodging and diving and twisting and turning Jean Alesi. Behind Alesi, Olivier Panis in the blue Prost, and Michael Schumacher starting from 6th on the grid. So they're out of the Chateau d'Eau, the right-hander, which drops down alone. One of the Williams in trouble?
No, I think they're all having to just back up. So somebody slowed down a lot to warm his tyres up with spinning them away from that last little chicane. And I think it backed the whole crew up behind him. And it's so easy to stall the car in that situation. And sometimes you're not even looking ahead of you. You're looking inside the car, generally playing around. And suddenly you realise the car in front has stopped, a bit like at a roundabout.
Fingers crossed then for the weather. We're with Alesi. Look to the right, and it's Rubens Barrichello. As ever, look for those 5 red lights coming on one at a time, going off together to lead to a pre-programmed pause. And then the race starts. The green flag waving in the background shows that everybody's in position. And Magny-Cours in France. Yes! Good start by Barrichello. Good start by Barrichello. David Coulthard goes up into 3rd place, so already he has made a position. It's Barrichello leading Alesi, leading David Coulthard, and Olivier Panis has dropped back to 4th position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the yellow Jordan is 5th. Barrichello leads.
I think Herbert had a very poor start. Johnny Herbert falling back through the field. What did you say? Barrichello making the perfect getaway under pressure. And that's Frentzen coming up into 4th place. So Panis really losing out on that first lap, with Schumacher already round the outside of him.
Schumacher is up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th position from 6th on the grid. And Eddie Irvine carving his way through the field. He's up behind Damon. There is Damon Hitler. He's going well too. And Frentzen.
Frentzen with Michael Schumacher trying to get up the inside of him into 180. And Häkkinen also already up to, I believe, 10th place.
Mika Häkkinen flying through the field, coming up towards Imola, the right and left, and that leads into the Chateau d'Eau. The race leader, Rubens Barrichello, 1 lap almost completed, 71 to go, and he's got a gap between himself and, as I thought, Jean Alesi, I think, is starting to hold things up already. Across the line goes Barrichello. David Coulthard is challenging Jean Alesi, and the gap between Barrichello and Alesi is 1.1 seconds, almost 1.2. Riding with Alesi now, round the right-hander at Estoril. Building up to 190 miles an hour as you see Rubens Barrichello braking hard for Adelaide, the right-hander. And Coulthard is going through. David Coulthard takes Jean Alesi.
Yeah, Alesi may come back on the inside, but Coulthard closed the door. That's an important move for Coulthard early in the race, because his car is clearly faster than the Sauber of Alesi. And Coulthard, fastest man already in the first part of this second lap. But just a quick run through. Hill is still down in 17th place, but Häkkinen already up to 9th place.
Mika Häkkinen sailing through the field from 14th on the grid to 9th in the race. Michael Schumacher from 6th to 5th, and Eddie Irvine still down in 18th position behind Damon Hill. In fact, he's lost a place. Damon Hill's got past him. So Barrichello leads. Coulthard closing up on him. Alesi is third, Frentzen is fourth, Schumacher is fifth. Then the two Prosts of Olivier Panis and Jarno Trulli. And you have seen Mika Häkkinen go through your pictures as the race leader. Rubens Barrichello completes his second lap. Now the gap has come down between him and the second place man, and it's now David Coulthard to 0.6 of a second.
Yes, despite overtaking Alesi on that lap, albeit relatively straightforwardly at Adelaide hairpin, Coulthard was a full 1 second faster than Barrichello, the current leader. So Coulthard's car working very, very well. The track is green. It's been washed very heavily with rain, and really the cars will be a new experience for everybody until they can get some rubber back down on the track.
This is David Coulthard's golden opportunity, starting well ahead of his three main rivals for the championship, the two Ferraris of Schumacher and Irvine, and of course his teammate Mika Häkkinen. And Mika Häkkinen is now 8th. He's got ahead of Fisichella. He started in 14th position. He came through at the end of the lap in 9th position. Now he is 8th. It's Jarno Trulli next for Mika Häkkinen to challenge, and then he's going to get up amongst the top men on this very, very difficult part to pass circuit. Lap 3 out of 72. Barrichello, Coulthard, they're together. Alesi is dropping back. 2.2 seconds now, the gap. And that's making things difficult for Schumacher. He wants to get ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's in 4th place. So here they come. 1-2, Barrichello and Coulthard. And you can see that Frentzen is bottled up behind Alesi, who's got clear air between himself and the yellow Jordan.
Well, Coulthard, I think, may have a small straight line speed advantage on Barrichello, but he's never going to get close enough behind him in that long, long right-hander of Estoril. I saw a comment from Nicky Lauda that you should have long, fast corners onto the straights for overtaking. I completely disagree with him. You need a slow corner on, otherwise you lose too much time in the dirty air of the car in front, and that's the problem Coulthard has now got. Barrichello's car is just about good enough to make it very hard work for him to pass. And
now Häkkinen is 7th. He's got past Trulli. He'll get past Olivier Panis. I'm quite sure about that. Panis, the Frenchman in the Prost, started 3rd. He's down to 6th now. Michael Schumacher has passed him. So is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Alesi is still 3rd, and here are the leaders, and we are on lap 4 out of 72. Rubens Barrichello resisting the pressure from David Coulthard. I say again, if you've got the racing line at this Magny-Cours circuit, it's mighty difficult to pass, and there's not all that much of a power differential between the Ford V10 and the Mercedes V10, if any differential at all. They're both revving at about 16,000 RPM, and Alesi still holds that 3rd position. Now we're with him now. You can see Coulthard and Barrichello disappearing into the distance, and look at that rain cloud. Look at that rain cloud on the left. If that moves much further right and deposits its contents on Magny-Cours, as sure as eggs are eggs, we'll have the safety car out.
Bad news for the Brits. We've got Hill 16th, Irvine 17th. Johnny Herbert has obviously got a problem. He's actually in last place now, so we're expecting maybe Herbert coming in the pits. Now that's Häkkinen making a move on
Panis. Mika Häkkinen past Olivier Panis up to top 6th position, and into the pits comes the unfortunate Johnny Herbert. That is no routine stop on lap 5 out of 72 as we watch Mika Häkkinen now, and in his sights he has now got Michael Schumacher. Now we're really up amongst the top men, the top 6 at the present moment on lap 5, with Frentzen now putting up a really fast lap as he closes on Jean Alesi and challenges. The top 10 are Barrichello, Coulthard, Alesi and Frentzen. Schumacher is 5th. Panis has dropped down to 7th behind Häkkinen. Trulli is 8th. Fisichella and Wurz are 9th and 10th. And there is Michael Schumacher with Häkkinen behind him. Well, I said there was going to be action in this race, and there is plenty of it already. Here is the Finn, who incidentally had a car problem in the warm-up. He had to stop, run in and get into the spare car. No such problem in this race. There is Michael Schumacher in the Scarlet Ferrari in 5th position, but he's not making any impression on Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And Coulthard challenging for the lead.
It's a bit late, yes, David, but he's made a tremendous move. But Barrichello was very kind to him there, I have to say. But Barrichello getting a good run out. Coulthard should have the power to outdrag him down to the Nürburgring chicane. And well, David, that was a great move, but Rubens was kind to you, but you had to make it sooner rather than later. And this, of course, is a rerun of these two having a big scrap in the British Formula 3 Championship many years ago.
And now David Coulthard is really in a terrific position to make this race his own. I know it's early days to say that. We're not 1/10 of the way through the race yet, but having fought his way through from fourth on the grid to first, here's a replay as they come down to the hairpin at Adelaide. I was expecting Rubens Barrichello to dive through on the inside, but David Coulthard resisted him and has retained the lead.
Yes, I think Rubens did very well there. I mean, bold move from David, and he made it stick very well, but Rubens saw him coming and took a decision. Okay, I'm not going to have an accident. That whole incident ended up in Barrichello's hands, and I think he took the right decision.
Well, now the man to watch is Sean Lacey in third position as David Coulthard there pulls away from Barrichello. Nobody can get past Sean Lacey. Frentzen is still trying. Look for the yellow Jordan in fourth position, and Schumacher is still fifth behind Frentzen.
Well, talk about let him off the leash. Coulthard just went a full 1.5 seconds faster than any other man on the track on the last lap. So now he's got some clear air. He's getting out of there.
Now, David started fourth, and his time difference on his lap as you watch Schumacher and Häkkinen battling for fifth position in the Ferrari and the McLaren. David Coulthard was 2 seconds slower than Barrichello, but Barrichello went out when the weather was good, or as good as it was going to be in qualifying. David Coulthard went out when it was at its very worst, and it was an absolutely magnificent lap. And as you heard from Martin earlier on, he was fastest in the warm-up this morning. The McLaren is absolutely au point for this race. And here is Frentzen, Schumacher, Häkkinen, and they are fourth, fifth and sixth. And Mika Häkkinen, I remind you, has come up from 14th position. You're watching him now in sixth place.
Well, the McLaren is clearly working very well on this racetrack in the condition it's in. Häkkinen's doing half the work at the wheel that Michael Schumacher is, and Schumacher will not be pleased to see that silver car homing in his mirrors. So Mika Häkkinen's car working well. Now he's just in that bad area, unfortunately, where he starts to get in the turbulent era of Michael Schumacher and things get tough. But I think if he sends one, he's got a good run too. He's got tremendous speed down the back straight. But Michael, too late on the brakes for Mika. But surely he'll be past his championship rival in the next 10, 12 laps.
And if he is, there's going to be a real put down for Michael Schumacher. Now we can talk about strategy as you watch the Ferrari and the McLaren fighting for that fifth position, because I'm expecting them to start coming in from round about lap 22. We're on lap 8 now. We've got some time to go yet, but there may be all sorts of strange strategies in this race for very special reasons by the individual teams as Häkkinen gets closer and closer to Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. They might, for instance, choose to start on a low fuel load and come in early. They might decide to do just the opposite. Time will tell. We're on lap 8. David Coulthard has just done the first lap in under 1 minute 20, and he's gone round in 1 minute 19.227 as Lacey, Frentzen, Schumacher, Häkkinen coming towards us, the two Prosts of Panis and Trulli. And there's a 105,000 people crowd here, and they are spellbound.
Well, you saw Häkkinen lost that a little bit in the middle of Estoril corner. He's a little bit nearer than he was before. Will he come into the picture? Look at the tremendous slipstream he got there. Michael going to the inside to protect the line, and he's going to brake later. I think Mika could have stayed a bit longer on the throttle there, to be honest. But Michael defending his line early, realising Häkkinen had got to run at him, and he keeps the place.
Well, these are the two top drivers of the day. Yes, they're in fifth and sixth positions, but what a battle they are having. And I'd remind you that Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the brilliant German who crashed so heavily in Canada 2 weeks ago, is staying ahead of them. Here's a replay. Schumacher goes up, it stays on the inside.
Schumi was quite clever there. He parked it on the apex to make sure Mika couldn't duck back underneath him, and really played a bit of a masterstroke there. Häkkinen should have been through.
So I think James Allen has got some news for us. James?
That's right, Murray. Yes, you were just speculating about the strategies there, and basically you need to give yourself, as Martin was saying before, a wide open pit stop window. Normally this is a 2-stop race, and you'd start with about 55 kilos of fuel and go to around about 20 to 22 if it was dry. But today they're expecting rain after about half an hour, is the latest forecast I heard. We're about 20 minutes into this race, so you start with a little more fuel, around 60 to 65 kilos, and be flexible. Also adding a little bit more downforce at the beginning of the race. We saw Schumacher and the front runners doing
James, we got Hakkinen with a great chance now. Now he has got the inside line. Michael will not hold that off. Will he duck back underneath? Hakkinen running a bit wide. I still think Hakkinen should out-drag him to Imola, but it's going to be touch and go. He hasn't got the advantage Coulthard had against Barrichello. Michael will have to yield, and he does. Look at the crowd. They're all getting their coats on out here, Murray, in the grandstand.
Yeah,
everybody suddenly stood up, getting their coats on.
They're going to be coming in before very much longer, I'm sure, and that will be to put on weight when the tires are David Coulthard in the lead. Rubens Barrichello takes the lead, and David Coulthard looks as though he's out of the race. He stalled his engine, and David Coulthard retires from the lead of the French Grand Prix on lap 10. What awful luck for the Scotsman. Now it's Barrichello. Here's a replay. Let's see what happens.
It's broken down. It's not a place you'd go off. Obviously his car's broken down, and he just decided to get off the racetrack as he saw second place man Barrichello coming along. What has Coulthard got to do?
Well, poor David Coulthard. That's the 4th time in 7 races that he's retired for one reason or another. Luck is not with him this season, but Barrichello's benefited from that, and Barrichello has got nearly 4 seconds between himself and Jean Alesi, who now regains his 2nd position, which is where he started on the grid. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 3rd, Mika Hakkinen is 4th, and catching the German. Michael Schumacher in that 5th position. All is not lost for the German, because the rain that we're expecting could change things. They might be on different strategies. But meantime, Rubens Barrichello will be feeling very, very heartened and happy about this. Look at the battle developing behind them. There, you see the yellow Jordan of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Ahead of him is Alesi. Now, this is Frentzen's opportunity. If he can only fight his way past Alesi, who is the most experienced Grand Prix driver of them all in this race. We're with him now, coming out of the Chateau d'Eau. Now, there we go, Alesi into the chicane, down to the last corner, the Lycée, turn 14 in this race. There's Frentzen, behind Frentzen is Hakkinen, behind Hakkinen is Schumacher. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Panis is in 6th position, but he's 5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. A titanic scrap between the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th men, while Rubens Barrichello races round in the lead of the French Grand Prix on lap 12 out of 72. And watch Mika Hakkinen. He's come up from 14th. He's now 4th. 10 places, and he's trying to do to Frentzen what he did to Michael Schumacher. Very, very late on the brakes in the McLaren.
Well, the disappointment of the race has got to be the pace of the Ferrari, really. And Michael Schumacher falling away from that battle quite quickly there, still in 5th place as Alesi locks the inside the left front wheel going into 180. Not unusual going into there, it has to be said. And Hakkinen very much stalking Frentzen for that 3rd place. Didn't take Hakkinen long to get through the pack, did it?
It did not. And Eddie Irvine, on the other hand, is taking a long time to get through the pack, as you see Coulthard's McLaren being removed. Eddie Irvine started in 17th place, 12 laps later. He's fought his way up to 12th position. Damon Hill started 18th, and he's only 15th now. Yes, there's a long way to go. And the retirements are David Coulthard is out of the race. Poor Johnny Herbert has retired yet again. He surely must be the most retired driver in Grand Prix racing, because year after year, irrespective of what car he's been in, poor Johnny's had to retire. He's out of this race, as is Deniz, as is Coulthard. 19 out of the 22 starters still running. Marc Genet is last, and his teammate Luca Badar is in 18th position ahead of him. Down to Adelaide, the hairpin. Alesi 3rd, Frentzen 4th. Hakkinen is in 5th place. And Rubens Barrichello now has an ever-increasing lead. We're with Alesi now of 4 seconds.
I suspect this is just the lock-up, the replay of when we saw Alesi locking the left front. You could see him moving the steering wheel around. They're just eased the brake pedal back a little bit, trying to reattach the wheel to the tarmac, and he did that rather nicely.
Well, now you can see 4 of the very best drivers in Grand Prix racing in very, very evenly matched motor cars, demonstrating that Magny-Cours, like most Grand Prix circuits these days, is very difficult to get past it. Why, people say, is it difficult? All sorts of reasons. The drivers have equal ability, the cars are very evenly matched, the aerodynamics make the air behind them very turbulent, and if you get close to the car in front, you lose downforce on your front tyres, which are the ones that are steering you, of course. And so, all in all, you've just got to pressure the driver in front and hope that he makes a mistake. Eddie Jordan there.
This is the problem corner, Estoril, and Hakkinen having dropped back a little bit now, and obviously nowhere near any kind of position to have a go at Frentzen under brake, and he'll close up on him, I think, but I don't think he's going to be able to do anything until he gets significantly closer out of turn 2, Estoril corner. Well, nonetheless, Hakkinen will be more than satisfied to already have Michael Schumacher behind him.
Yeah, and Michael Schumacher is dropping back. You see, we're watching him now. He's over a second behind that battle for second position between Alesi, Frentzen and Hakkinen that you're looking at.
That wasn't an overtaking manoeuvre you were watching there with Hakkinen and Frentzen. That was just, there's very much two distinct lines to take into that corner. Go in wide and come out tight, or just go in very early. Very early is definitely the fastest way, but Frentzen choosing to go in a little bit wider, and it looked like Hakkinen was going to come sliding up the inside, but it's not the corner to do it.
Well, now, sadly, I have to say that it really does look now as though David Coulthard's chances of the World Championship have been all but destroyed. He started this race in an equal 6th position, some 22 points behind his teammate Mika Hakkinen that you are looking at. If he'd got those 10 World Championship points that he would have got, if he'd managed to finish this race where he was when he retired, it would have considerably strengthened his case.
Now here we go, Murray. Now it's a much different situation for Hakkinen. He managed to stay close enough. He should be able to come up the inside. Will Frentzen close the door? Not impressed.
Clean as a whistle. Clean. Oh, yes, he goes. Frentzen dives up alongside him, and he's going to... But Hakkinen has got the inside line for the left-hand bend. Now there's a right-hander that follows, and Hakkinen chops across quite safely the front of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, now up to 3rd position. You are watching an absolutely superb drive by the reigning world champion Mika Hakkinen. Here's a replay.
Yes, Frentzen should have come to the right. It was clear that for all to see that Hakkinen was going to have a go at him and got more straight. He already knows Hakkinen's faster in the straight, and Frentzen just left the door absolutely wide open. And now Hakkinen's bearing down on Alesi, who I think is doing rather well.
Yeah, I think Alesi is going to yield where the others did not do so quickly. There'll be more of a performance differential between the Ferrari-engined Salva of Jean Alesi and the Mercedes-engined of Mika Hakkinen. So they're round the left-hander at the Grand Courbe into Estoril as we look down from the helicopter. The blue car is Jean Alesi, 2nd place. The silver and black one behind him is Mika Hakkinen. They're coming up towards Adelaide, which is where Mika Hakkinen does these demon late braking moves and dives past people. He's going to have another go, but he's too far away from Jean Alesi, who closes right up on the apex, runs wide, and retains his 2nd place, but I don't think he's going to do it for very much longer. Meantime, Rubens Barrichello now leads by 4.6 seconds, and covering the first 5, there's a mere 7.2 seconds as you watch Ralf Schumacher try to pass Fisichella in the Benetton. Fisichella is in 8th position, Ralf Schumacher therefore is in 9th position. Benetton and Williams, they're both powered by the Supertech engine.
Yes, they're certainly evenly matched in terms of power with the same engine. And, well, the Williams looked like they were very strong earlier on in the proceedings of this Grand Prix through free practice and that, but weren't dealt a very good hand in that wet qualifying session, and Ralf really having to work very hard back there in 9th place. Zanardi back in 13th in the second Williams.
Here are the top 10 on lap 17 as you watch Schumacher pushing Fisichella for 8th position. Barrichello leading by 4.6 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi, who is in 2nd place with Mika Hakkinen tucked up under his rear wing, ready to challenge. 4th is Frentzen, 5th is Michael Schumacher, 6th is Olivier Panis, 7th is Jarno Trulli, 8th is Fisichella that you have been watching, and now in 9th position is Ralf Schumacher, followed by Eddie Irvine, who's come up from 17th and is now carving his way through the field. Now this is Alesi versus Hakkinen. And Schumacher gets through ahead of Fisichella, who has to yield, and Ralf Schumacher is now up into 8th position in the Williams. Nice bit of driving, and you can see Eddie Irvine in the Scarlet Ferrari thundering up behind them, and he's gaining hand over fist on them, lapping 7/10 of a second faster than both of them. And down to the Adelaide hairpin, hard on the brakes, down into second gear, onto the apex. Fisichella has to run wide. Schumacher lets his Williams run wide, gets right in front and hit Hakkinen now, completing the lap. Is still right up with Alesi, who still resists him. Now, Alesi hasn't had the best of seasons in 1999. He's failed to finish 5 times out of the 6 races we've already had. He got 1 World Championship point at the San Marino Grand Prix. We're with him now. And hopefully, the producer will stay with Alesi, and we'll be able to see whether Mika Hakkinen tries a late braking move yet again. No, Alesi's got him ticked.
Alesi quite slow on the apex of Adelaide every time, but he's certainly braking late. Always was a good late braker, Jean Alesi, and interestingly, actually 0.05 of a second faster on the previous lap than Mika Hakkinen. So Alesi driving a stormer, quicker than Barrichello, who's currently leading.
And a great tribute not only to him and the car, but to that Ferrari engine, because it's a last year's Ferrari engine, labelled as a Petronas engine, which is Alesi's and the Sauber team's Malaysian sponsor.
Getting a bit dark out there, Murray. Look, people getting their plastic mats out in the grandstands. They've got a better feel for the weather than we have inside this commentary box, but certainly getting very dark overhead.
Alesi Hakkinen, just behind them is the... And Hakkinen won't get through there. That's where Villeneuve tried to get past Eddie Irvine last year and failed so to do. And talking of Irvine, you can see that he's now getting very close indeed. Eddie Irvine in 10th position to Fisichella's Benetton.
That was actually Michael still behind, I think, the Jordan of Frentzen, that particular shot we saw coming onto the pit straight. And now Hakkinen ever closer. Look at the slipstream he picks up. Tremendous speed he picks up then, and again, Alesi braking as late as he did, and they've both gone wide. And will that let no, Frentzen's not able to take advantage of that, so Hakkinen and Alesi braking absolutely on, and in fact slightly beyond the limit. And the pair of them, what a classic move that was. Good to see, both on the ragged edge. They both tippy-toe around the outside, live for another day, and Hakkinen now up to 2nd place.
Now, this is going to be the battle. The gap between Hakkinen and Barrichello, who leads the race, is 4.5 seconds. And I said earlier on, what a storm of a race Mika Hakkinen is driving. This is the man who won the Brazilian Grand Prix, who won in Spain, who won in Canada 2 weeks ago to take the lead in the World Championship. Here's the replay. See Alesi lock up his tyres. The glowing disc brakes of Mika Hakkinen's car appear on the right. Alesi has to run wide. Hakkinen does the same thing, chops off Alesi in the process, and now Heinz-Harald Frentzen is right up with Alesi, who has lost momentum as a result of Hakkinen's passing move.
Imagine that, you're doing 180 miles an hour, you're braking at something like 4G, 110 metres before the corner, and you're inches apart from another car doing exactly the same thing. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after these messages.
22, and it's starting to rain at Magny-Cours in France. The crowd are putting up their umbrellas, and Mika Häkkinen that you're looking at has closed the gap to Rubens Barrichello from 4.2 to 1.7 seconds.
Look at the rain. They'll be in this lap for sure for wet tyres, and in fact those drivers further down the pack, like Eddie Irvine, are going to be in the pits a lap before the others, and I think that's going to give Irvine quite a big advantage. He's a long way back anyway from the leading pack, but that's a great timing for Eddie Irvine.
But it looks as though they're not ready for him, Martin. They're in a bit of a flap in the Ferrari team. Yeah. Irvine just hit the rain as he came towards the end of the lap.
Fisichella spinning around, and that's how slippery it is. But I still think Irvine's better off waiting for tyres than, in fact, no, not waiting that long. They're waiting too long.
32 seconds.
They just weren't ready.
This is real panic.
That's completely blown that advantage then. Now they've got a tip-tap. While you were away, absolutely nothing significant happened other than it started to rain. James is in the pits. What's happening?
Total confusion. Ferrari not ready for Eddie Irvine. It was a unilateral decision by the Irishman to come in and put wets on. And the front left, when it went on, was actually a groove tyre. They had to take it off when they realised and put a wet tyre on. McLaren are ready for Mika Häkkinen. And meanwhile, Ferrari are re-racking wet tyres this time, of course, boys. Ready for Michael Schumacher. Irvine gained nothing from that. Your race leader, Rubens Barrichello, comes in. They're all coming in now, Murray.
Yeah, James, look how much Alesi has caught Häkkinen on that in-lap. So Häkkinen very, very cautious, and Alesi right up behind him. So the top 4 or 5 guys all in the pits together, and Alesi may just get out before Häkkinen if they can get a good stop in that Sauber team. Steer odds, Murray.
Absolutely. Lap 23, and it's all going to depend on pit stops now. Barry's Heinz Harold Frentzen. He's got the wet weather Bridgestones on. Michael Schumacher there in the pits, and the Ferrari mechanics don't look much happier with Schumacher than they did with. And Alesi gets out. Now, where is he?
There's Häkkinen. Look, so Häkkinen's out, at least ahead of Alesi.
Off goes Hill. That is Damon Hill off the track, and he's got a puncture. Left rear puncture.
I would think he's whacked the wall somewhere. I think you'll find he probably spun off and had a little chat with the wall. We might get a replay on that. That's Alesi back on track, having put the wet tyres on. Now you see the spray coming off as the tyres lift bucket loads of water up into the sky, and a car creeping along. That's Damon Hill creeping along on the right-hand side. I think he will have gone off in Estoril corner. Louise, what's happening?
I think what's happened there, as all the cars started coming in at the same time, absolute mayhem. Damon was coming down to exit the pit lane when one of the arrows came out of his pit garage at the same time. The two touched, and I think that's probably what's caused Damon's problem.
Well, we've all been speculating about whether Damon will in fact retire before the end of the season. He was a very unhappy man when he failed to qualify and actually started the race 18th. After he had had 2 cracked exhaust systems and 2 different cars in qualifying, and this will not improve his humour one little bit.
Now look at what Lacey's looking to. Remember I said at the beginning of the programme, why are they all running dark visors? The TV camera can hardly see, and that's got a clear screen on it. So now those drivers that chose the very dark screens are going to be struggling as visibility is heavily impaired. Now remember, in the wet practice yesterday, Häkkinen really did struggle with his car, and in the wet warm-up this morning, Murray.
Yeah, whereas Michael Schumacher and Eddie Irvine in particular, who you are watching now, were flying. And on lap 23, Rubens Barrichello has the lead from Mika Häkkinen, with John Alesi in 3rd position. So things have turned good again for Rubens Barrichello in the white Stuart. We're looking at him now with Häkkinen behind him in these appalling conditions. This is exactly what it's like now. And if it's bad for Barrichello, just imagine what it's like for Häkkinen with those great roosters of spray being thrown up alongside him. And Alesi is in 3rd position. You're looking at the top 3 now, with Alesi closing on Häkkinen, Häkkinen closing on Barrichello. 4th is Frentzen, and in 5th position, Michael Schumacher ahead of Olivier Panis. What a race.
That's a replay of Damon Hill's problem. Louise said there was a touch in the pit lane. That's where he got that puncture from. But Barrichello being extremely cautious in the lead of this Grand Prix. There's nowhere near as much standing water yet as there was in qualifying yesterday. So I don't see any signs of the aquaplaning that caused them so much problems, and for sure they will have lifted Häkkinen's car, and he certainly seems actually to be the happiest one in the front three at the moment. But there's a wheel gun in the pit lane. Where's that from?
James, what's the news?
Well, Murray, Damon Hill comes crawling in. I told you it was going to rain half an hour into the race. 31 minutes in, sure enough, it started raining. Absolutely fascinating. Now, I was looking at the figures before, and one of the reasons possibly why Michael Schumacher couldn't keep pace with Mika Häkkinen was because he put a bit of extra wing on the grid. His straight line speed was 289 kilometres an hour compared to Häkkinen's 303 in the dry. He's got a wet setup, Martin, I think.
Well, this could help him. This could help him. Michael Schumacher's in 5th position as you watch the first two. Barrichello, and if it was hard for Häkkinen to pass Barrichello before, when he did so at the Adelaide hairpin, just look at what it's like now. You're looking at it from Alesi's
spun.
Off goes Sean Alesi. That's exactly where he went off in an earlier race years ago in the Ferrari.
He's kept the engine going, but will he get out of the gravel? No, he tried to pull away too quickly, thumping the steering wheel. And Alesi should have just, so easily let that clutch out. To be honest, I think he was beached anyway. So Alesi having a harmless spin in terms of damage, but look how angry he is, and I do feel for him, because there's not a lot you can do. It's the Chateau d'Eau, ironically, the water tower corner, and Alesi certainly found plenty of water there, didn't he?
Shaking his head with a mixture of rage and frustration as Heinz-Harald Frentzen moves up into 3rd place, as Schumacher into 5th. Here's a replay, and the Sauber just spins as though it was on
safety car.
Glass.
Safety car is out, Murray. The safety car is on the track. They've declared that there's too much standing water, and they will now continue this race. They'll pick up Rubens Barrichello. There's waved yellows all the way around the track, so nobody can overtake. So Rubens may as well just back off now. His team should already have told him. They will have seen the safety car leaving the pit lane, so he may as well just calm it and make sure he doesn't have a silly aquaplane off the road.
Well, this isn't going to make it any easier for Barrichello or for Mika Häkkinen behind him. That's the BAR team coming out, I should imagine, to get Jacques Villeneuve in from 10th position, as Oliver Gavin, our British Formula 3000 driver for the European team, comes out in the Mercedes-Benz safety car yet again. He's been out several times in races this year, and it's time, while they're out behind the safety car, we'll go to a break. I've seen worse. Donington 1993, when I was talking about Rubens Barrichello earlier on, was just as bad as this for the whole race. But Barrichello leads. Mika Häkkinen there, who started down in 14th position, has brilliantly fought his way up into the lead, and now back where he is now, and that's a Williams off and a Benetton off. So I reckon now, just looking, I wonder if it's Fisichella and Zanardi, but I'm guessing
it's Villeneuve and Wirtz have stopped in there. That's Wirtz's Benetton. They've obviously aquaplaned off the road. They're on wet look, so they've aquaplaned off the road under safety car conditions because they've already made their pit stop. And we also know that Villeneuve stopped somewhere in the same area on the racetrack. Haven't picked him up with the cameras yet. We did see a second car in there, so it's the BAR of Villeneuve. Now you can see it in the background.
Yeah, Genet has gone off as well in the Minardi. So we're going to be down to 13 or 14 cars. There is Jacques Villeneuve's BAR. Louise, have you got news?
Yeah, we've just seen a couple of cars go off. I'm down in the Stewart garage at the moment. Rubens Barrichello saw him waving his hands. He's actually been on the radio calling to the team, telling them the car is virtually undrivable. It's just aquaplaning everywhere. He's asked for the race to be stopped, and Paul Stewart, I believe, has just gone off to see the race director to ask the very same thing.
I hate smugly to say I told you so, Martin Brundle, but
You didn't believe me, did you?
I remember because it was identical to Alain Prost in 1984 at Monaco when he went across waving his hand to say stop the race when Ayrton Senna was bearing down on him in the Tollman.
But if I was the race director, I'd be saying, okay, well, there's Genet's car. So but remember, those cars weren't behind the safety car, okay? They were playing catch-up, we saw Villeneuve making that extra stop for fuel. And at safety car speeds, I don't think there's any need to put the red flag out. And they can do. We had that here, I remember, in a French Grand Prix 3 or 4 years ago, where they actually had to stop the race for a period of time. We didn't have the safety car in those days. I don't believe there's any chance of aquaplaning off at these speeds, and they should just carry on as they are.
Good news, that's Genet's car. Good news, it's getting much brighter now, and I'm sure you're right, actually, Martin, in all seriousness. The safety car will motor around until the rain eases. We'll know when he's coming in.
Have you ever seen I've seen the safety car crash. That's when you know it's really getting bad.
Then you have got a major problem. But I noticed that Heinz-Harald Frentzen just a few seconds ago was positioning himself very aggressively in third place behind Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. He's dropped back a bit now, but Frenzen's dander is clearly up. He means to get past Häkkinen on the restart of the race when the safety car pulls off. And you can see Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari has got Olivier Panis right behind him. We're watching Marc Genet's car being removed from the track. So that means that Johnny Herbert is retired, Deniz is retired, Coulthard is retired. We've seen Jean Alesi spin out. Now we've seen Genet and Wirtz and Villeneuve, and Zanardi, for that matter, seems to be out as well. So it looks as though we're going to be down to 13 cars when the race restarts out of the 22 that originally took the lights.
Yes, apparently Paul Stewart has asked for the safety car to slow down, but I still think those 3 cars that went off were playing catch-up to the snake behind the safety car. If they do happen to throw the red flags, and I really believe they won't, then the race will be in 2 parts. Poor old Jean Alesi, Murray. He was a half a lap away from the safety car coming out, so he'll be even more angry as he's trudging his way back to the pits to see.
The eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted that Damon Hill has rejoined 2 yellow Jordans up there. So Damon Hill, far from being discouraged, is back in the race, although he will be a lap or 2 laps down, actually. But in this race, quite clearly, anything can happen, and if you're there at the end, who knows, you could be in the points. Top 6 get points, 10, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1 for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th places. And Oliver Gavin in the Mercedes starts another lap, followed by Barrichello. And of course, this is the way the Canadian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago finished, behind the safety car. We saw history made then. Let's hope we're not going to see it repeated here, because it would be a very early finish, and we would then be into the question of whether points would be awarded if the race is finished at 75% distance, which would be 54 laps in this race. points are awarded. There are the McLaren mechanics, and here is the safety car. We're on lap 29. The counter keeps running. That is Tora Takagi in the Arrows, 13th position in for tyres and fuel. And a new nose.
He's obviously had a trip through the gravel trap at some point. Barrichello's the leader of the race. If he wants to slow the safety car down, he can actually just slow down and leave a bigger gap. And eventually, Ollie Gavin will have to respond to that and slow down anyway. But the pace looks sensible to me.
Eddie Jordan walking along the pit lane, wrapped in thought, wondering about Frenson, his man, who has had such a brilliant season since he joined the Jordan team. Second in Australia, third in Brazil, fourth in Monaco. He's only won one race, and that was for Williams the year before last, the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. But Heinz Harald Frenson has reacted magnificently to being appointed by the Jordan team, and the German is actually equal fourth in the World Championship. And talking about the championship, Häkkinen is looking at the present moment with a 4-point advantage over Michael Schumacher, of extending it if they stay where they are, because at the present moment in second position Mika Häkkinen is on a potential 6 points, whereas Michael Schumacher is on a potential 3 points. But it really is early days to be talking about the World Championship for drivers, because we're on lap 29. We haven't even yet done half distance. The half distance lap is lap 36, and yet again the safety car fails to peel off and go into the pit lane, and therefore there's going to be another lap behind it.
Yes, he's got to do a lap with his lights out, so see if he switches anything off as he goes over the line. I think if he does, it's a touch too early, frankly, but won't be too much longer. I'm pretty certain that they will restart this race under greens. The sky's clear. We're going to take a quick break before they do that.
Lap 31 out of 72, and as you can well see, the safety car is still out. I don't think it's going to be out for very much longer, because the rain has stopped. Patrick Head there, the technical boss of Williams, and Rubens Barrichello has got Mika Häkkinen tight up behind him. I'm expecting, I've got no prior knowledge, I'm expecting the safety car to come in very quickly indeed. So there is Häkkinen second as he comes through. Heinz Harald Frenson in third place, followed by Michael Schumacher, who leads Olivier Panis in fifth position, And Damon Hill has rejoined the race. He's 2 laps down. The blue car there is Jarno Trulli, who is 6th. Both the Prost in the points. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is 7th. Fisichella is 8th. Look for Eddie Irvine. There he is in 9th position, in a very strong position to make up places, followed by Ricardo Zonta, because Villeneuve now in the BAR is out of the race. That's De La Rosa in the Arrows, Luca Badoa in the Minardi. Just 2 cars after him on the order, Takagi and Hill, although Damon Hill is in front of him in this procession.
Yeah, it's a tough afternoon now for Damon Hill. He's already explained to us that really he's struggling to find the motivation and performance that he wants, therefore he's retiring. And he's now a full lap behind the 13th place man, and 2 laps behind the lead. Is in treacherous conditions, and it'll be a big test of his motivation if he pounds round for this last 42 laps. A lot of pressure in the paddock, and this is something I dislike a lot about Formula One. A lot of pressure saying, oh, Damon should go now, he should go immediately, and all that sort of thing. You know, last September everybody was fighting him as the hero when he won in treacherous conditions like this in Spa, and you know, carrying him around and saying how brilliant he was and all that sort of thing. And all of a sudden there's this big movement, oh, Damon, you should go straight away. Don't subscribe to it at all. And the man's still a world-class driver, and I'm looking forward to see it. I hope he just stays on it this afternoon to prove them wrong.
I couldn't agree more strongly with every word you've said, Martin. And Gavin takes another lap in the safety car. I don't know what they're waiting for now, to be quite honest, unless it's for standing water and they know there's drainage to ease away a bit.
Well, the flashing lights are still on the safety car. We think there's some animation going on the pit counter. I thought I saw some people in the Williams pit saying a safety car coming in soon, like they had some overheard some radio communication or something. James is in the pits. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I'm down at Ferrari, and Michael Schumacher, just as he came by last time, sort of did a blinking sort of signal with his hand and pointed at the safety car. I think he's unhappy. I think he wants to get it out of the way. As I said, I think he's running a bit more wing than the McLaren in front of him. He thinks he might have a bit of a chance in this race. But a critical thing to watch out for, guys, is the 1:28 lap time, because as this track dries out, we've got a strong breeze blowing, and as this track dries out, that's the time at which you've got to come back in again and change for the slick tyres. 1:28.
Thanks for that, James. 1:28. We'll remember that. That was Fisichella that you saw spinning. He was in 8th position. I'm just seeing whether that was a replay and whether Irvine is now behind him or ahead of him. If he's going to place, that's obviously very much to his advantage. One less to worry about, as you see Schumacher, Panis, there's Damon Hill down, Ralf Schumacher, there's Fisichella, and he's still ahead of Eddie Irvine.
Bit of a problem here will be falling tyre pressures. They need probably a bit extra pressure with this standing water to give them less aquaplaning. And when you're cruising around at this kind of speed, no tyre temperature, tyres will be extremely cold, and inevitably the tyre pressure falls with it. So a bit of a double whammy just when you need all the grip you can find.
Much, much brighter. I am optimistic that when the safety car comes in, the race will run the rest of its distance. There's still 40 laps to go. We're on lap 32 now, long, long way to go. The flashing lights, which indicate that I'm staying out, are still going on the roof of the safety car as Häkkinen comes up, followed by Frentzen. Now, watch those lights. Is he coming in?
Just to remind you,
no.
In the early part of the race, the pit lane starts about now, and it looks to me like the safety car's staying on track, but I do believe he's got to switch those lights off long before he comes in the pit lane, Mary. We should see something on the Mercedes get a little bit out of shape coming out, at least, say that.
Now, if this was a champ car race in America, this could dramatically alter strategies, because fuel consumption is very, very critical there. I don't know that it's that critical in this race for it to alter strategy, but it might just well do and change the complexion of the race. And that is the Prost of Olivier Panis, who's in 5th position. There's Damon Hill, 2 laps down, I remind you, going on in his last French Grand Prix, followed by Jarno Trulli, who's got to get past him before he gets to grips with his teammate Panis. That is Ralf Schumacher, and we're looking from the helicopter now as they make their way down to the Adelaide hairpin on this fastest part of the course, out of the Gulf turn from Estoril. You can see what a very, very sharp corner it is. That's the one where Häkkinen has been so brilliant in this race.
Yeah, it's been a lot of overtaking into that corner, really, the main overtaking place of this circuit. There's a couple of opportunist areas further round, but just if you have joined us late, just to remind you that Johnny Herbert dropped out of the race early on with a gearbox problem, and Coulthard was screaming off into the lead, and then had some kind of problem with the McLaren, we don't know, pulled over on the side of the racetrack. Häkkinen has made his way beautifully through from 14th to 2nd.
Well, there was a time when you would have been looking at those big, wide rear boots. They're much narrower now. The 4 grooves are there for water clearance, and also in dry conditions, just to put less rubber on the road to make the cornering slower in the hope of increasing lap times. Now, I watch the safety car again. I still see those lights flashing, but we're at Imola now, and it's when he comes out of the right-hander at Chateau d'Eau, which he's approaching now, that we'll know if those lights go out. Hello, there's the starter. They're looking as though nothing in particular is going to be happening as Hill rounds the corner in the Jordan. Safe down. Is this the signal for the race to restart on lap 33? It is not. Absolutely, it is not.
You can hear the engines revving. They're getting a little bit impatient now. The drivers know the track's just about ready to go again. So
temperatures?
Well, they're just trying to spin the rear wheels up as much as they can. The engine temperatures now have no problem at this point. So no problem at all in terms of the cars overheating. They're moving along just fast enough, and the air's so cold anyway, just 15 degrees. That they won't have a problem with the engine or gearbox, just they won't have enough temperature in the tyres. And Hill's retiring.
Hill retiring from his last French Grand Prix. Is this going to hasten his retirement? It's the 5th time he's retired from 7 races. He's only got 1 4th place and 3 World Championship points to his credit in a very unhappy last season of Formula One. And I'm very, very sorry to see that and to say that.
Well, after what we just said about him, I just so hope he hasn't just pulled in and pulled out of this motor race.
And said that. Adelaide again, I remind you of the order, and make no mistake about it, when this race restarts, it is going to be a fizzer, because they're all tied up together, they all know the conditions, and the gaps have been virtually eradicated as the pit lane is being swept. Barrichello leading, Häkkinen second, Frentzen in the yellow Jordan, Schumacher is 4th, weaving and to keep his tyres up to temperature. Panis is 5th and Trulli is 6th. Only one constructor has got both his cars in the top 6 at the moment, and that is Alain Prost's team, French team in France with a French driver and a French engine, and Ralf Schumacher is 7th ahead of Fisichella. Eddie Irvine is 9th, Zonta is 10th. There's only 10 seconds between the leader and the 11th place man, which is Pedro de la Rosa. Luca Badoa is in 12th position, and the one remaining runner, now that Damon has retired, is Tora Takagi. 22 started, 13 are still running. We're on lap 34 out of 72, so just under half distance. Now, is this it? I don't think so. Safety car lights are still flashing. All right, Martin. What's your guess? Why is it staying out so long?
I think they just want to be extra cautious, really. But I have to say the track looks ready.
Yeah, these
does he put the lights out on the safety car?
Yeah,
no, he doesn't at the moment. His lights are still on the safety car. I have to say it looks like the track is ready, but we haven't got the benefit of being out there.
No.
And
I'm not belittling their decision. These cars, these engines produce 800 brake horsepower. The cars only weigh 600 kilograms with the driver and everything aboard. That's an absolutely fantastic power-to-weight ratio, where obviously you can spin the wheels in normal circumstances.
Safety car is in at the end of this lap, so they obviously agree with us, and you can see the drivers have been champing at the bit the last couple of laps. They know it's nearly ready to go.
Okay, folks, fasten your safety belts. This is going to be it. The French Grand Prix, after a good few laps behind the safety car, is going to restart when Gavin pilots the silver Mercedes into the pit lane, and Rubens Barrichello sees a clear track ahead of him.
That's clearly not just to make the pit lane look tidy. That's for when their next pit stop happens. They don't want standing water. Easy enough to lock the wheels going into your pit garage of what is made up of 18 of your own mechanics. So mechanics very much thinking of themselves and their team there and clearing the standing water from the pit lane.
Lap 35. Where is Gavin now? He's at the 180. He's still got to come up to Imola. He's still got to come up to the Chateau d'Eau. You can see, looking across at the skyline, that the conditions are visibly better than they were. It's infinitely brighter. The rain has well stopped. A lot of the water, by no means all of it, is on the track. And the lights are out. Now, we're at Imola. The right, the left, now up to Chateau d'Eau, the right-hander. And Oliver Gavin gets ready to peel off and into the pit lane. Are you ready then? Because now the French Grand Prix is again.
I can tell you, I will be so nervous. Now, Barrichello's now takes over the role of the safety car. Barrichello now has control, and he's going to back them all up, and then he'll scamper out of that last corner as quick as he can. There'll be plenty of spray, and there he goes. So Barrichello leads in. Nobody can overtake to the start-finish line, and they're through, but plenty of spray, look, and a lot of pressure on Barrichello. I can tell you, they're all super nervous on the restart of this race. So easy to make a small mistake and be sitting in the gravel trap.
But Barrichello has the advantage. Clear track, no spray. Hakkinen is taking a faithful. So is Frentzen there in third position. Michael Schumacher is still fourth. I didn't see him behind the yellow door. There he is. Michael Schumacher still in fourth position ahead of Olivier Panis. And this is the half distance, lap 36 out of 72. As Schumacher challenges Frentzen and runs wide, loses momentum. Frentzen accelerates away. Michael Schumacher is on a charge. Remember what James Allen said. Michael Schumacher's car is set up for wet conditions with more downforce from the rear wing. This should help the German. Michael Schumacher challenging Frentzen. There they are. First, second, third, fourth. And Olivier Panis not so far behind in fifth position ahead of Jarno Trulli. Damon Hill is out of Trulli's way. Unfortunately, Hill in the garage, out of the race. And Rubens Barrichello leads at this half-distance point. That dark visor of his shining in what light there is here at Magny-Cours.
Once again, Barrichello being particularly cautious, but hasn't stood him in too bad a stead this afternoon. He does still continue to lead this race, but Barrichello, quite a wise head on him now, but being super cautious, and if Hakkinen gets a sniff, I think he'll pass him easily under braking.
Schumacher getting visibly worried. He wants to get past Frentzen. He can see that Barrichello and Hakkinen are going to pull away from him. Schumacher wants to win this race as much as anybody else does. He's dropped to second place in the World Championship. There is Michael Schumacher, and there is the gap. Barrichello, Hakkinen, and that Ford engine is really punching out the power.
Yes, Hakkinen got well out of shape actually in the middle of Estoril. The problem he's got now is he can't actually see where he's going either, and you can see he fell back from Barrichello and then takes a lot of time out of him under braking. Barrichello super cautious. Hakkinen would have seen that, and well, if Michael Schumacher could only see where he was going, I think he'd be having a go at Frentzen too.
Well, I think Rubens Barrichello is distinctly going to be in danger at Adelaide at the next corner, because Mika Häkkinen's prowess at that hairpin is awesome to watch, and I use the word advisedly. He's under the wing almost of Barrichello's Stewart car, and there is Frentzen behind him, Michael Schumacher.
Curves like that, you've just seen them leading into this short straight. In the dry, they're absolutely nothing. You don't even give them any thought. In the wet, it's the perfect opportunity to just spin off straight into a concrete wall. You start driving the track a few meters in front of you instead of looking down the road as you do in the dry. In the wet, you bring your focus and you're just waiting for the car to twitch. You're driving the piece of track you're on at that moment at all times.
Now, Hakkinen will be looking to get as close to Rubens Barrichello as he can before he gets to the Adelaide hairpin.
Yes, last time round, Hakkinen tried to get on the power too early and got out of shape and lost that time. Now he's got to be smoother, calmer in the middle of Estoril. Then I think he should stay just about close enough to have a dive up the inside of Barrichello as they go into Adelaide. There's a long way back.
Look at Schumacher.
It's Schumi that's got the best chance, isn't it?
Yeah, Schumacher right up with Heinz-Harald Frentzen now, and Rubens Barrichello, of course, knows as well as does Mika Häkkinen what the Finn is going to try. And he tries right up behind Rubens Barrichello.
Oh, he's going to spin. He caught the white line on the inside.
Through goes Schumacher. That was bad for Mika Häkkinen and Panis. Mika Häkkinen has shot himself well and truly in both feet.
Häkkinen put the car on the inside of the curve, an absolute no-no. He was clearly watching Barrichello or something. Look, puts the car on that white line, spins up the inside rear wheel, and you're always going to go round. That was a very simple, straightforward error there from Mika Häkkinen.
And it's paid off for Rubens Barrichello in terms of the tactics he has been following. Take it easy, he's saying to himself. And now, Frentzen is up into second place, as he was at Montreal 2 weeks ago. Stewart leads with Barrichello at the wheel. Jordan is second with Frentzen at the wheel. Mika Häkkinen spins down. Michael Schumacher is up into third place. And Mika Häkkinen's going to have to look at the way Schumacher is going now.
I think Schumacher's just pulling out so he can see where he's going. You're always just trying to pull out of the other guy's slipstream. Not as much as overtake him, as just to see where he is.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher is sizing up Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who won't see the Ferrari in that ball of spray behind him. But what guts this requires from all of them. They're driving into a blinding ball of spray. And Michael Schumacher has got the bit well and truly between his teeth. He knows that Häkkinen is out of the running. And now, can he get past Heinz-Harald Frentzen as they come out to Adelaide? Look at the spray.
Schumacher can see nothing. The camera sees through that spray. Schumacher's looking through 50 metres of spray. The camera's looking through 3. But Schumi comes in, just easily, just presses the brake so gently and rolls it up the inside. Once again, Frentzen, much too easy a touch into Adelaide.
Now, Michael Schumacher sees Rubens Barrichello ahead of him. And the gap is about 1 second. Michael Schumacher from 6th on the grid now races in 2nd position, and Mika Häkkinen is down in 7th place behind Ralf Schumacher, Trulli, Panis and Replay.
Yes, Replay there. Michael, very smart, very calm. It would have been very easy for him to go up there and just block a front wheel. He's just rolled it in, and if Frentzen turned in, he knows he could still just about do something about it. I'm sorry, but Frentzen not doing a good job in that corner today. Look, Eddie Jordan shaking his head. I think he's probably agreeing with me.
A sad shake of the Irish head of Eddie Jordan, because he knows now that with Michael Schumacher ahead of Frentzen, and Schumacher getting out of shape, he's right on the ragged edge now, closing up on Rubens Barrichello. The gap was 1.4 seconds. It's certainly less than that now. As Schumacher goes across the line, I tell a lie, it's 1.5 seconds. But Schumacher, 2nd position. Barrichello leads. Frentzen 3rd. Panis is 4th. And both the Prosts have moved up a place, of course. They're 4th and 5th. Ralf Schumacher is 6th. Mika Häkkinen out of the points. There's no McLaren in the points at the moment. Although I have no doubt that Mika Häkkinen will soon get past Ralf Schumacher in the Williams Supertech.
Not so sure. I think you could well be right, Murray, but Häkkinen's not been as strong in the wet as in the dry. But I fear that Barrichello's days are numbered of leading this race. But there's several people who've cruised up and had a go at him. Somehow he stayed in front. Damon Hill apparently had engine problems with the Jordan. That's why he came into the pit garage and stopped.
That certainly won't increase his motivation to continue. And Rubens Barrichello, I keep reminding everybody, is no new boy. This is his 103rd Grand Prix, in spite of the fact that he's still only 27 years old. And he's very, very mature, and he'll certainly need to be, because he's got the toughest man in Formula One gaining on him visibly. There he is, Michael Schumacher, Ferrari, and it's go now as they come down out of Chateau d'Eau, down to the last corner, and Michael Schumacher will be going for Barrichello at Adelaide.
Yes, I think Barrichello's going to be easy meat anytime soon. Michael's got a lot more confidence, especially into the braking areas, and Michael somewhat more acrobatic behind the wheel. But as we said before, Barrichello still maintains the lead, even if he's constantly under pressure.
So, Michael Schumacher, I remind you, has won this race 4 times in the last 5 years. There's something about Magny-Cours that suits the German.
Yeah, now Michael got on the white line on the exit of Estoril there and lost a hatful of time. You just cannot touch the white lines. Everybody knows that. Sometimes you can't avoid it if you're understeer wide. And that's where Rubens has got to find some confidence. Wind the brake balance a couple of turns to the rear. I think he's already done some of that. And don't lock the fronts. It's easier to cope with a slight locking of the rear if you can. And Barrichello there has got to find some way of braking later. I don't think he's any slower anywhere else. He's just massively slow on the brakes.
Well, he's going to need to be very good when he gets up to Chateau d'Eau. It's unusual for someone to pass before the chicane, which finishes the lap, but I have seen it before. They're into Imola, they're coming up to Chateau d'Eau now. Look where Michael Schumacher is, he's got the momentum. It's lap 41 out of 72. I said this race was going to be a cracker when they restarted. My goodness, it certainly is. Frentzen is not giving up. And Norris Pan is 4th, truly 5th, Ralf Schumacher 6th. Mika Häkkinen is still out of the points, and Schumacher is right up with the steward now. Now is the time for Michael Schumacher to get through as they come up to the Grand Curve. On the inside, is he going to go?
No, he won't get through there, but Häkkinen must think his world's come to an end. He was about to take he took the lead of the race, or about to take the lead of the race, spins off, goes back into 7th place. Now he's got the Irvine's Ferrari all over the back of him. So Häkkinen's afternoon turning around in quite a hurry, and still Barrichello maintains enough lead, and he now breaks up the inside, and there seemed to have been a lot more grip.
Look at
Schumacher!
Fantastic, unbelievable,
Rubens, you've got to break
unbelievable.
later, my friend. And now Schumacher blocks the apex again nicely, but Barrichello gets away. It's almost like Michael was out of gear. It's like Michael was in the wrong gear. So Schumacher came in so deep, I'm not sure he really intended to arrive quite that fast. Look at that.
Watch yourself, Rubens.
Schumi running well wide. He seems to be under control. Then he's almost stationary. He's looking for a gear or something there. And Rubens comes back on the inside. Good
Lovely
stuff.
bit of calm, composed driving from Rubens Barrichello.
Yeah, but Michael came from 100 metres back or something.
I couldn't believe it. But he's going to do it again. He's not going to give up. Michael Schumacher, push, 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 looking for those 10 World Championship points. And look at Frentzen. Frentzen is still as close to Schumacher as he was before. And Schumacher's going to have a go again as they come down to complete the lap. This is lap 42, 30 laps to go. Tanis is having a go at Frentzen for 3rd position.
Michael also is quicker into the last corner, but he'd be crazy to take a dive there. He knows he's significantly faster than Rubens, and it's only a matter of time. So Michael patiently hanging around there, struggling to get traction out of that last corner. And Frentzen and Panis now closing in on the pair of them.
I hate to remind the Jerry Myers that after the Spanish Grand Prix, they were moaning and groaning and whining about dull Formula One. Then we had Montreal, and now we've got this. This is great motor racing.
Now, brake on the inside, Rubens. There's a lot more grip. There he goes. Look, yes, he's taken an unusual line where the tarmac is less used, less polished. You get an awful lot more grip there. Rubens just seems to have found that, and suddenly Michael didn't take as much out of him.
Well, my hat comes off and my heart goes out to Rubens Barrichello. If he can resist pressure like he's getting now. And Eddie Irvine has got ahead of Mika Häkkinen, unseen by us.
Look, Michael's got his wheel up the inside and Rubens is having to yield, but there's more grip around the outside, the go-kart line, and Rubens still somehow leads this Grand Prix. What incredible maturity.
And Mika Häkkinen is in real trouble. He was right up at the front. He's now been passed by Eddie Irvine, who, as he did in Montreal, is really on a charge. He's in 7th position ahead of the McLaren. No McLaren in the points, one Ferrari in the points, and the other Ferrari, 1 place behind Jarno Trulli, who is 6th. That's Barrichello leading. Schumacher is 2nd. They're completing lap 43. That's Heinz-Harald Frentzen behind them. So it is Stewart, Ferrari, Jordan, and in the background you see the other Ferrari of Eddie Irvine. There's only 5 seconds covering the first 6 places.
Now, Michael's got to not let his car run to the outside white line. He's got to stay on the black stuff, and he just does it. So he doesn't lose as much on Barrichello this time. Can Barrichello repeat his better braking up the inside into Adelaide? Or will Michael come at him? And here comes Michael.
Yes!
And this time Michael should make it sting. Yes, he does.
Oh, marvellous by both of them. But Michael Schumacher showed the way and leads in France on lap 44. And now Heinz-Harald Frentzen has seen what his countryman has done. He'll be having a go at Rubens Barrichello now. So Ferrari leads, Stewart second, Jordan third, Prost is fourth, Williams is fifth.
Here we go, Murray. Look, Michael coming again from a long way back, and he's just squeezing that brake pedal, not really even attempting to slow down in any big way. Rubens too tentative, and that gave Michael all the space he needed.
Ring the bells in Maranello, because Eddie Irvine, there you see him, is in sixth position. He's in the points. He's passed Trulli. He's right up behind Ralph Schumacher's Williams. The first six are in the same shot. That's the race leader. Now is Michael Schumacher with 29 laps still to go, 28 laps now still to go. Going to make it 5 wins from 6 French Grand Prix as Eddie Irvine on a replay goes ahead of Jarno Trulli up into 6th position.
Nice move from Irvine, and suddenly the Ferrari's coming alive in the rain, and I think that was very well predicted by James Allen. They could well have put a wet setup on, gambling on that rain later in the race, and now they're absolutely flying. And this Schumacher boy seems pretty handy, Murray, doesn't he?
Michael Schumacher in the wet is superlative. Remember that incredible win, the first Ferrari win he had in Spain, in conditions that were unspeakable, much worse than we've had today. And then he won at Monaco in the wet. Michael Schumacher, like Rudolf Caracciola before the war, is the German rainmaster, this time in an Italian car, but the skill is just as great as his previous great countryman. And Michael Schumacher is now pulling away, hand over fist, from Rubens Barrichello. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is having a look at the white steward all the time, wanting that second position, which Frentzen had in Australia, the first race of the year. So now Michael Schumacher's got to keep it quick, but he's got to keep it smooth, and he's got, above all else, to keep it on the island for 10 World Championship points, which would take him back into the lead of the World Championship. Mika Häkkinen is still only 8th.
Yes, and Irvine, you get the back of this pack, look, crawling all over the back of Ralph Schumacher too now, so Irvine still very much on a charge, but now he's got a lot of cars to pass if he's going to make any impression on his teammate who's currently leading the race. But this is looking a bit sick for McLaren, both in the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship.
Ferrari are already 9 points ahead of McLaren, despite Häkkinen's success at Montreal 2 weeks ago, and Eddie Irvine only being in 3rd position there, and Michael Schumacher out of the points. Ferrari are back here, but I remind you, there's still a long way to go, and we've seen what can happen in this race already. There is Irvine, and ahead of him, behind the Prost there of Olivier Panis, that's Panis, who is in 4th position rounding Adelaide. Behind him is Ralph Schumacher in the Williams, who's driving another fine race, and Eddie Irvine is in the Ferrari behind the Williams. And Ralph Schumacher has already had 4 points positions this year in the Williams, which is much slower than some of its rivals. It's got a less powerful engine, but Schumacher is making the most of the experience that he now has. I'm talking about Ralph Schumacher in his 40th Grand Prix, and he's not only staying ahead of Eddie Irvine, but he's right up behind Olivier Panis's blue Prost. That is Ralph Schumacher. He is in 5th position. And actually, in these wet conditions, having less power is not going to be nearly as much of a disadvantage as it would have been if it had been a dry race.
It's all about drivability now. It's all about how the power delivery comes from the engine, how flat is the torque curve, and how smoothly you can get some kind of traction down onto this racetrack.
Meantime, up at the front of the race, Michael Schumacher, having taken the lead, has now increased it to 5.5 seconds. Between Barrichello, who is 2nd, and Eddie Irvine, who is in 6th position, there is only 3 seconds. That's how close a race it is. as you look at Barrichello in the white car, Frentzen, who is third in the yellow car. Schumacher accelerating away from the Adelaide hairpin. Prost, Schumacher, Ralph and Irvine. 4th, 5th, 6th. Schumacher's going for it.
Yes, and Ralph there all over the back of Panis. So Panis getting a particularly poor run out of Adelaide hairpin, having to go and defend his line, but still made it down to Nürburgring chicane first. And Eddie Irvine, and with Häkkinen now reclosing on Irvine, as you can see.
Yeah, Mika Häkkinen taking advantage of the fact that whilst Olivier Panis is going very quick, I've got little doubt that Schumacher, Ralph would pull away if he could. Louise Goodman's got some news. I'm
standing here with Damon Hill. Damon, bad into a bad weekend for you.
Pretty typical this season, unfortunately, but that's the way it can go. And you know, I don't really have anything to complain about. I had just a lot of bad luck, but also didn't perform as well as I'd liked either. So a bit of a shame, because actually in the race I think we could have maybe clawed our way through to do something, but because I made a good pit stop at the right time, but then it all went pear-shaped when an arrow's punctured my tyre.
And you're now saying that this could be your last race for Jordan, is that correct?
It may well be, yes. There's some deciding to be done about Silverstone.
Thanks very much, Damon.
Well, Louise Goodman, that is a fantastic statement. Did you hear it, everybody? This could be Damon Hill's last race for Jordan, and therefore as a Formula One driver, I hope that's not true. But Eddie Irvine, meantime, with Häkkinen right behind him, and Ralf Schumacher ahead of him, and Panis in the blue car are making a fantastic race of it for 4th position.
Go and talk to him, Murray, after this race. He's got to go to the British Grand Prix. Go and have a word with him, for goodness sake.
There will be tens of thousands of, I use this phrase advisedly, broken-hearted people if Damon decides he doesn't want to drive at Silverstone. I do very sincerely hope that he will, well, maybe he hasn't made his mind up yet, but I'm sure he will think of the fans. They have supported him so magnificently over the years. We're on lap 48 in France. Michael Schumacher is way out in front now.
You see the word Mika on the car there. That's because of the cigarette advertising rules here in France, and they've got drivers' names on both of the McLarens and various other situations on the teams.
Olivier Panis is a bit of a roadblock at the moment. You can see the way everybody is closing up. He is understandably refusing to yield because he wants to catch and get past Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But behind Panis, there's this string of cars now. Panis is 4th, Schumacher is 5th, Irvine is in 6th position. There is the Ferrari. In 7th place, it's Mika Häkkinen, who can't do anything about Eddie Irvine. And Mika Häkkinen would really welcome that 1 World Championship point. It could make all the difference to the championship at the end of the year, at the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka on October the 31st. But Eddie Irvine is going to be a mighty difficult man to pass, because he will know that point that he could retain if he stays ahead of Mika Häkkinen would help not only him but Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Both the Ferraris are in the top 6 at the present moment, and that is the only constructor that is. Wow, 12 cars left. Of them, 11 are on the same lap. All 12 are on the same lap now. The retirements, in order of retirement, are Johnny Herbert out on the 3rd lap, then Deniz, Coulthard went out when he was in the lead, Alesi went out when he was 2nd, spun out in the wet, Genet and Wurz went out because they had problems in the wet. Jacques Villeneuve has retired, so has Zanardi. Another bad race for the Italian. Damon Hill into the garage and out of the race. Is he out of Formula One? Giancarlo Fisichella has retired the Benetton, so neither of the Benettons are going to finish this race after they'd shown signs of a renaissance when Fisichella finished 2nd in Canada at Montreal 2 weeks ago. This is lap 50, and the Ferrari mechanics are coming out. Now, I presume it's for Michael Schumacher, because Eddie Irvine wouldn't. But James, what's the news? James?
The Ferrari, yeah, a lot of activity down here in the Ferrari garage. Irvine's going to come in first. I told you before that the changeover was around the 1:28 mark. We're still around the 1:30 mark in terms of lap times. 1:30, that is. So it's difficult to say what's going to happen here, but Irvine seems to have a set of rain tyres ready for him. But Michael Schumacher's mechanics are getting a set of dry tyres ready for him. There's an awful lot more racing to come here, guys.
Wow, dry tyres, Martin.
Well, look, I mean, he's all over the place on the wets. They're clearly overheating now. They operate, the rubber of the wet tyre is designed to operate in much cooler temperatures. And in fact, you often get more grip with a wetter track than this, than in these kind of sort of half wet, dry conditions. You'll see the back end of the car sliding as Michael tries to get some traction. But I wouldn't want to go on slicks yet. These new groove slicks are much harder than they used to be. You always have to wait that little bit longer. I'd have said there's way too much water on the road at the moment for slicks.
I know when you took the King of Spain out in the McLaren two-seater, you said to the Bridgestone technicians you'd like some softer tyres, and they said you've got the softest one there are already.
No, they said that you've got the softest ones we're going to give you, buddy. But that's
in comes the Ferrari.
Yes, that's Irvine in the pits, and as James has already pointed out, he will go on to wets. Barrichello there flashing through your picture in second. Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher, Olivier Panis, and now Hakkinen takes over 6th place because of Irvine's pit stop. Hakkinen up there in the final points position at the moment. Decent pit stop there for Irvine. Another set of wets. Off he goes. They heat them to about 50 degrees centigrade as opposed to 80 or 90 for the... That's bad news for Irvine. He's going to go straight out into some traffic, but or behind a BAR, but they heat them to 50 rather than 80, and that's Hakkinen having a go down the outside of, must be Panis, yes?
Yes.
So Hakkinen trying, obviously now finding a bit more confidence and grip and starting to come back again.
Yeah, and Ralf Schumacher is still in 4th position as Hakkinen goes through on the inside. Panis has to yield when he's got a whole of a McLaren alongside him. So Mika Hakkinen is now up into 5th position. He was 7th, and then there's a replay. He was 7th, but then into the pits came 6th position Eddie Irvine. Upper place goes Mika Hakkinen. But, as I've said before, it's a bit of a false dawn because Hakkinen has still got to come in for his second stop.
Yes, I think most of them have that he's racing against, but it's quite clear, isn't it? Hakkinen, either Hakkinen or the McLaren is more at home, or indeed both, as the track dries out again.
Absolutely. And it could be the McLaren, because we know from James that Michael Schumacher is on a wet setup.
And what's happened to Michael Schumacher, look, he's suddenly got Barrichello right behind him.
Yeah.
So has something happened to Schumacher we haven't seen yet, or has he got some kind of problem? I suspect he's locked a brake somewhere or whatever. Has he done a slow? Yes, he's done a very slow midsection. I think you'll find Schumacher's been off the road somewhere, so hopefully we'll get a replay of that. Now he's got to rebuild that lead.
Yeah, we've seen him go off the road and recover before, and
he lost 8 seconds though. He lost 8 seconds, so he must have had a reasonable trip across the scenery.
It's a heck of a lot, but meantime you can see the gap visually between himself and Rubens Barrichello, with Frentzen now ever closer to the steward in 3rd position, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Ralf Schumacher just a second or so behind, and Mika Hakkinen can see an opportunity now to gain places, but very soon the rest of the leaders will be coming in. We're on lap 52 now, and this is a 72-lap race. Remember the long haul that we have had behind the safety car. I don't think the race is going to anything like 2 hours as a result of the safety car being out. In the 2 hours is the maximum that they will be allowed out on the track, and if the race looks like going longer than 2 hours in order to do the full planned race distance of 72 laps, it would be stopped at the 2-hour mark. So Michael Schumacher leads on lap 52 with 20 laps to go and another pit stop to go. And whatever he did, he seems to be recovering from, because the gap was 0.8 of a second. He's now into his 53rd lap, and the gap is 2.3 seconds. As in comes Ralf Schumacher from 6th position in the Williams. He lost a place, you will recall, to Mika Hakkinen. And now on go another sets of wets, of Bridgestone wet weather tyres.
The first little turn of the wheel you saw before Ralf got away properly is as he selects first gear, and it all clunks in and gives the wheel a quick spin, despite him having his left foot on the brakes, and that's Ralf making a decent pit stop.
Well, if the Ferrari team get the pit stop wrong, and I don't for one moment expect they will. They are very, very good indeed. It's going to be nip and tuck between Schumacher and Barrichello, assuming that Barrichello's pit stop is a good one, because there's still just about 2 seconds between them. Michael Schumacher leading in the Ferrari on lap 53, and you can see the gap is actually increasing. Here he is.
Yeah, Michael clearly has got a faster car, but he must have made a mistake. Judging by how tentative he was into Adelaide next time around, I suspect he went skating past that to lose his 8 seconds in the middle of that lap. But now you can see him struggling for grip as the rear tyres beginning to overheat, and Häkkinen looking menacing again.
Odd in this age that we haven't had a replay if they caught it, because it would have been something quite dramatic. Anyway, he's now into his 54th lap, he being Schumacher. Look at the battle for second behind him. Barrichello has got Frentzen right up behind him. Frentzen has got the Prost right behind.
You can see in the pit lane they're getting another steering wheel ready for what must be Michael Schumacher's pit stop. So maybe he didn't go off the road. Maybe he just had some kind of gear selection problem. Remember when he first passed? James, what can you tell us?
Well, it's absolutely right, Martin. I don't know what sort of crystal ball you've got up there, but it's obviously a very expensive one. They've got Ignazio Lunetta, his race engineer, has got a spare steering wheel ready. Now, we've seen this a number of times with Ferrari where Schumacher's had gear selection difficulties. I was listening to him as he accelerated out of the final corner past me in the pits, and he was short shifting on the lap where he lost all that time. I think it's possibly the problem he had in that hairpin as well. He was looking for a gear, it wasn't there for him. I can tell you one other thing is that when he stops, he's putting wets on.
Thank you, James. You may be wondering why on earth he's going to change a steering wheel if he's got an engine problem. The answer is that so many of the functions on the car these days are controlled from the steering wheel that if you change it, you get better connections. And there's the confirmation. The new wheel, it'll only take a second or so to slot into position. He won't lose any time on top of the fuel stop and the tyres. And now look at Frentzen with Mika Häkkinen right up behind him. They've just scrambled past Tora Takagi. Rubens Barrichello did so better, as a result of which there's a gap, and that's Irvine off the course. He was in 8th position, and into the pits comes Michael Schumacher. Now
let's watch him
Eddie
stop.
Irvine's stop took 7 seconds.
He's got, I don't wonder if the engine stops if they change the wheel. No, it doesn't. They've got that one off to a fine art, haven't they? Does he? I don't think they have to restart the engine. Michael's got it on. He says, yeah, it's fine, let's go.
Oh,
no, the engine's not running.
Not go.
Oh, no.
Yes.
It took a while to get, some kind of gear. So Michael with 13 seconds.
He's lost 6 seconds, Martin, on that stop compared with Eddie Irvine. So now the race leader is Rubens Barrichello.
And this is for second. This is for second, Mary. Look, Häkkinen with a chance up the inside of Frentzen. He's getting a bit wiser now as the race goes on. Keeps a middle line and very much keeps that second place.
Olivier Panis darting about all over the circuit, trying to find some wet tarmac, because he's only made one stop. His tyres are overheating. He's looking paradoxically for some water to drive through to cool them down.
Yes, and well, we saw Schumacher definitely put wets on again, and that's got to have been the right decision. And here's a replay of Irvine about to take a trip across the grass. I suspect he locks his front left going into 180 and just just drifts wider and wider and wider. I've been across that bit more than a few times, and it just sucks you in. You just cannot get away from it. And you go around the outside, it fills all the radiator ducts up with stones, but it's not too much of a problem. They come out in the next 2 or 3 braking zones. Race
leader, Rubens Barrichello. Second, Frentzen. Third, Häkkinen. Fourth, Olivier Panis. And Michael Schumacher back in the race. Look for the Ferrari in the background. There is the Prost. Remember that Michael Schumacher lost an extra 6 seconds as a result of that fuel stop. This is lap 56 with Mika Häkkinen trying to improve from 4 World Championship points for 3rd position to 6 for 2nd. Eddie Jordan turning away there. I think he probably knows that Häkkinen's got enough speed to at least get alongside Frentzen. They're not in the picture at the moment. They should come into view very close together, and Frentzen's got a nice line down the middle there, I have to say, and he just seems to have aced it finally in there, and Häkkinen getting a good run round the outside. I'd be surprised if he's got enough grunt to out-drag that Jordan down to Nürburgring, and in fact he hasn't. Frentzen closes the door quite legally and quite safely. Mika Häkkinen will respect that move, and it's still Stewart leading, Jordan leading McLaren. They've both still got to come in and make another stop. Olivier Panis has got to do the same thing. He is in 4th position. There he was. Jarno Trulli is now 5th. Michael Schumacher is still in the points despite that long pit stop of his. He's in 6th position with the advantage of having had his 2nd and final stop. But depending on the time that the others take, this race is going to be mighty close at the end. Coming up to complete lap 56 out of 72.
I tell you who's looking good, little Barrichello. He just keeps there at a sensible pace, and everybody else around him is having problems. We saw Michael with a long pit stop. If Barrichello can get a good pit stop in, he should lead this race, unless Schumacher's out there doing stunning lap times.
I'm looking for his lap time.
Yeah, he hasn't done a complete lap yet, other than his out laps from the pit. So we've got to wait another 30-40 seconds before we get a picture of Michael's actual raw speed. And here's Hakkinen with a better chance than ever. Oh, wow, getting right up underneath his gearbox. Frentzen now is trying to pinch him, and look at that. Hakkinen didn't have enough speed.
Oh, Heinz Harold, that was magnificent. No,
he's gone deep. He's gone in too deep.
Heinz Harold Frentzen, I was just going to say that's magnificent, but Mika Hakkinen was even better. The last of the late breakers, and Mika Hakkinen takes 2nd position from Heinz Harold Frentzen with a gap of 2 seconds between him and the steward ahead, and there is Frentzen running wide, Hakkinen nipping through.
Yes, what happens? I mean, Frentzen has just got a whole bunch more aggressive going in there now in these last few laps, but unfortunately for him, as the downforce bleeds away, it's very easy in the wet to snatch a front brake just at the last moment, and you lose a lot of retardation, and you have to run wide.
Well, Hakkinen is marginally quicker than Barrichello at the moment. We don't know if Rubens has got anything in reserve, but here they are, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. We've got to leave for a few moments. We'll make it as short as possible. Be back soon. This battle for the lead between Rubens Barrichello and Mika Hakkinen, who has caught him, but Michael Schumacher is in 5th place, having made his 2nd stop. Here's a replay of Hakkinen trying.
This is 4 or 5 seconds before you came back with us, and really Rubens giving Hakkinen the space, as he did Coulthard earlier on, but then just keeping his head. Remember, Hakkinen spun in exactly that kind of situation earlier in the race, and Rubens just calmly driving around the outside. Hakkinen with the significantly faster car at this stage of the race, and well, this race just keeps turning around all the way through.
Yeah, and watch Heinz-Harald Frentzen. You'll see the yellow Jordan in a moment. He's not giving up. Behind him is Jarno Trulli, who is yet to stop. Olivier Panis is down into 7th position from 4th, but he's had his second stop. Race order now as you watch this battle. Barrichello leads Häkkinen, Frentzen 3rd, Trulli 4th, and he's in the pits. Michael Schumacher will go up to 4th position ahead of his brother, Ralf Schumacher.
Right, Häkkinen got a better drive through the middle of Estoril, and that's going to get him in front of Barrichello long before the braking area.
Lovely.
So Häkkinen takes the lead. Michael Schumacher's speed, remember he had a 13-second pit stop, didn't really come out and set the world alight with his lap times as Häkkinen defends that lead. Barrichello's still getting a nice drive out, but no way he'll get back at Häkkinen from there. And can Michael Schumacher go fast enough to make up for that slow pit stop and end up back in the lead of the race when it's all shuffled through and everybody has stopped?
Well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen was actually the fastest man on that previous lap, as Häkkinen charged up alongside Barrichello.
Yes, I think these two slowed each other up a little bit as they had to wait, and it would be very easy to lock a wheel here and just run into the other car. So Häkkinen quite cautious from this point on. He's got the corner, and then he actually is very, very cautious. Probably a bit nervous of that white line again where he spun. He goes round the outside of it, and Barrichello says, well, I'll have a go. But he hasn't got enough speed or advantage to get ahead down into Nürburgring chicane. And this is Michael Schumacher, currently running 5th, but he has already pitted.
Yes, and he's only 5.7 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen, in spite of the fact that his pit stop was 6 seconds longer than his teammate Eddie Irvine, who is now down in 8th position. As we ride with Frentzen, look ahead, and you'll see Barrichello's car ahead of him. You can see Mika Häkkinen's car. We're with the 3rd placed Jordan of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, well and truly in the points again. And off goes De La Rosa in the arrows, and he is down in 11th position. Well, as he kept his engine running, it's very difficult. This is what happened. Frentzen came up alongside him.
Oh, look, that's a problem for Frentzen. He can't get the thing to change down. Look, he's stuck in a higher gear, and now he's got it on the cam and he's away. But has he got any gears? Yes, it's shifting up okay, but he's gone up the inside, look, and ended up with a box full of neutrals.
Look at De La Rosa's wing, front wing.
Yeah, I think De La Rosa, we saw him going off through the gravel, didn't we, and having that spin as a replay. And then we've cut to this, which is Frentzen with no apparent, I think he kept dipping the clutch, and it was in too long a gear. So no downshift there for the Jordan, but it appears to be okay now.
Well, he's still on 4 World Championship points. He's still in 3rd position. We're on lap 61 out of 72. Mika Häkkinen in the lead, 2.7 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Heinz-Harald Frentzen seems to me as though he's still got a problem.
No, it's changing okay now. It's doing all the normal things now. I think it's just so slow because there's so little grip, but that Arrows is not doing him too many favours. But the Arrows goes into pits, so that solves that problem in a hurry, and Frentzen appears to live for another day.
Well, into the pits comes Pedro de la Rosa, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen is still in a podium position.
Häkkinen 2 seconds faster than Michael Schumacher on that last lap. So yeah, Häkkinen, all of a sudden, from slipping way back, now looks like the man.
Yeah, what he's doing, of course, is to go as quickly as he possibly can to try to build the gap for when he comes into the pits, because this pit stop is going to be absolutely crucial. The first 3 have yet to stop the second time. Häkkinen, Barrichello and Frentzen. Michael Schumacher is in 4th position. He's now 14.14 seconds behind Häkkinen. But it's going to be mighty, mighty close, because remember, as I've said before, it's not just the 7 seconds or so that you're stationary as Zonta comes into the pits from 9th position. It is the time you take slowing down and then accelerating out, and it's quite a slow entry to the pits.
What have they put on that? Have they put? They look like they put slicks on that car, have they? Yes, they have. They've just put the groove slicks. But interesting to see how long he stays on the road. We'll have a look in a minute. But the Ferrari and McLaren teams will be watching that. I was a bit of a long distance away, but I still think they were slicks.
He's ahead of the Prost, and he's closing on Michael Schumacher, his brother, in the Williams. He's only 6 seconds behind him.
Now, hang on, Murray. That's Irvine scrapping with Panis. He has just passed Panis. So Irvine back on a roll again in 7th place, out of the points at the moment.
Yeah, and so Eddie Irvine is battling for that 6th and last World Championship point. 1 World Championship point with Olivier Panis trying to resist him, and I don't think he will. Eddie Irvine in the extremely powerful Ferrari. Mika Häkkinen leads. When is he coming in? Is he coming in? Yes, he must be coming in.
I don't think he's around the other side of the circuit, but I don't think we're going to see them having to pit, the leaders having to pit for slicks. I think with 10 laps to go, they ought to be able to somehow find enough life in those tyres to go through to the end of the lap. Let's see. It's nip and tuck, I would think, whether it's worth coming in for slicks. And that's why, if I was right about Zonta going out on slicks, all the teams will be very interested in his progress.
Louise, what's the news?
Yeah, the news I have is certainly that Heinz Harald Frenzen's Jordan and perhaps Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart can go to the end of the race without another stop.
Yeah.
Certainly in terms of fuel, they don't have to come in again for more fuel.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's going to be mighty interesting to see. We're on lap 63 now, 9 laps to go, including the one they are on. And there is the race leader. Now his tyres will be getting very, very tired indeed. Mika Häkkinen going through into his 64th lap. And Rubens Barrichello, now we're with Frentzen, he's in 3rd position, and he's catching Rubens Barrichello. That white car you see going through the turn 14 is Rubens Barrichello ahead of us in the Stewart in 2nd position, as we now look at Heinz Harald Frentzen, who is 16 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. It looks as though Michael Schumacher's not going to finish on the podium unless one of the 3 ahead of him comes in.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher's 4 seconds a lap slower than Mika Häkkinen now, so maybe Michael's still got some kind of gear shift problem. We've seen them change the steering wheel, trying to fix it, but maybe it just didn't work.
Well, if Mika Häkkinen wins this race, it's going to be a quite incredible achievement. I say again, he started from 14th, but look at the way that Heinz Harald Frentzen is closing on Rubens Barrichello. You can see the gap coming down. He's lapping to nearly 2.5 seconds faster than the Stewart ahead of him. Frentzen, who finished 2nd in Australia and 3rd in Brazil, and he's had a 4th place as well to give him that 4th position in the World Championship, is charging. We're charging off for a few moments. We'll be back. Listen.
Yes, Barrichello's just made a pit stop, and so has Mika Häkkinen. So Häkkinen, I believe, it's all just shaking out as we talk. Häkkinen has been in the pits, and now you see Häkkinen coming in for a late splash and dash. They changed the tyres, and it seemed a pretty good pit stop for a while for Mika Hakkinen. Then he seemed to take an eternity to pull away. Got it into gear, look, and then had to wait another couple of seconds before actually pulling out. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen now leads this Grand Prix. So Frentzen beats him out of there. You see Hakkinen rejoining the racetrack. Frentzen leading, and in the background you saw Barrichello making his pit stop. So once again it's all turning around and the Ferraris come into play again.
And we're on lap 66 out of 72 in this incredible race. Mika Hakkinen is into the pits and changed, and as a result of that, Heinz-Harald Frentzen leads. Rubens Barrichello is second. Michael Schumacher there is in third place, ahead of his brother Ralf Schumacher, with Eddie Irvine in the points in the second Ferrari. It's absolutely mega in the closing stages at Magny-Cours. And look how close they are. Barrichello, he's second. Schumacher third. Ralf Schumacher fourth.
Oh, Schumacher, Ralf misses his braking point and goes across the green tarmac there. That used to be all gravel. They make it too easy for these drivers these days. They should have poles in there with
spikes. Won't suffer.
Yeah, he won't suffer at all. In fact, it looked a bit quicker, didn't it?
Yeah.
So Ralf stays on track. It's Frentzen leading actually from Hakkinen. Barrichello is third. Will Frentzen have to stop for fuel? Has Hakkinen got the speed to catch and repass Heinz-Harald Frentzen for the umpteenth time this afternoon?
Who is on lap 67, then 68, 69, 70, 71 and 72. It's going to be a mighty, mighty close finish. As you look at Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, ahead of Irvine, behind his brother in the Ferrari. Well, this has been a quite incredible French Grand Prix, no matter what happens from now on. And Ralf Schumacher's driving another fine race. He's only just off the podium. He could still end up on the podium the way things are going, because I would be moderately surprised if they all finished. Well, there is a replay of Ralf Schumacher taking to the concrete, not the grass. But he doesn't suffer because he didn't actually have an advantage. He didn't pass anybody as we rejoin Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is now on his 68th lap.
Identical lap time to Hakkinen on that tour, and they're 2.3 seconds apart. You can see for yourself now, 2.369, so nip and tuck.
Louise, what is it?
I can tell you that Frentzen is definitely not coming in. Frentzen not coming in again, so provided he keeps it on the black stuff, looks like he's going to win this race.
Well, let's not count our chickens before they're hatched, especially for Eddie Jordan. Jordan have only won one Grand Prix since they started in 1997, and that was Damon Hill, who won magnificently in Belgium last year. And Frentzen is getting a bit agitated. He's coming up behind Luca Badoer in the Minardi, who's in 10th place, and he goes through now. Well, he's ahead of him now. Now Mika Hakkinen has got to do the same thing. Frentzen, who, as I said earlier on, has taken to Jordan like a duck takes to water, and now Schumacher, Ralf, is resisting Eddie Irvine and trying to catch his brother. And this is the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th place. This is a race which is very difficult to keep up with. Action all the way, lap 68.
Yes, and remember how much time Frentzen lost when he had the wrong gear in the hairpin, when his car wouldn't downshift properly. So Frentzen, at some point or other, Jordan have made a very smart move during that safety car period of tanking up their car, filling it up with fuel, and that's put Frentzen in a very strong position, and he's just pulled another second away into the lead. His lead's now 3.2 seconds.
But Martin, why isn't Michael Schumacher getting away from his brother in the far less powerful Williams better?
Well, I think Michael's carrying some kind of problem. Remember, they changed the steering wheel. We know he lost 8 seconds on one lap or whatever, and ever since that point of the race, Michael's not really been in any kind of shape in terms of lap time.
Irvine looking to get past Schumacher, Ralf, and if he does so, it will help Michael Schumacher, because Eddie Irvine won't finish in front of the German. You can be quite sure of that because of team orders. So if he could get ahead, he can protect the gap between himself and the Williams. So we're on lap 69. Frentzen is leading Hakkinen in this 72-lap race by just over 3 seconds. Barrichello is in 3rd place. You're seeing the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th between Michael Schumacher, Ferrari, Ralf Schumacher, there he is, Eddie Irvine, there he is, out of Adelaide.
That's a pretty tense battle, isn't it? Ralph's going to be rather nervous of locking a brake and slamming into the back of his brother. They have run into each other before at the Nürburgring, but clearly Michael, I think, is just about the slowest of those three, actually, and Irvine the latest on the brake. So there might be a few tears here in these last few laps of the French Grand Prix. And meanwhile, Frentzen looking very, very strong up front. I think he's going to take another second out of Hakkinen on this lap. So Frentzen, if Louise is right, and I'm sure she is, he's not stopping again, he is very much sailing towards a win for Jordan.
Well, the gap between Barrichello and Michael Schumacher is only about 4 seconds. Incidentally, when Martin was talking about the Nürburgring, that was the Nürburgring in Germany, not the Nürburgring corners here. The corners here are named after different circuits. Adler. Oh,
yes,
and Eddie Irvine
comes up
goes through. Eddie Irvine goes through.
Very, very cheeky, but it is possible. He just proved it, but Ralph's the one who gets the grip out of the corner, and it didn't count after all that, but a typical Irvine move.
Eddie Irvine has given notice to Ralf Schumacher, but he wants that 5th position, which he had momentarily. Here he goes on a replay. Dives through on the inside of the Williams, closes up on his teammate Michael Schumacher, and then Ralf pays it back.
Yes, you can have it on the way in, or you can have it on the way out. You can't have both. And which Ferrari is that? That's Ralf going down the outside of Michael. So Michael definitely got some kind of pace problem. Can Ralf find some traction and get ahead of Michael? Yes, he can. He's going to beat Michael down to the Nürburgring chicane. Something wrong with that Ferrari.
Yeah, that'll be an aftermath of this. And now Eddie Irvine has just got to maintain station. This will enable Ralf Schumacher to pull away in that 4th position and consolidate it. Eddie Irvine's going through.
He's not allowed to do that in his contract, is he? He won't be allowed to do that, for sure.
I don't know. It's not inconceivable that. Well, it doesn't make any difference to Ferrari, of course, whether Schumacher finishes 5th or...
Oh, yes, Irvine. It does. Yes, it does. For the World Championship, Murray. I mean, they'll be wanting Michael to get maximum points in the squabble.
I withdraw, you're right.
With Mika on that, but Irvine cheekily coming up the inside of Michael. He'll be getting the call in a minute.
Well, now,
stay away, because he has to contractually.
Yeah, we haven't lost sight of what's happening at the front. Frentzen is on his last lap but one, and he's 5 seconds ahead of Mika Hakkinen. It looks as though we are indeed going to see a famous and incredible second historic Jordan win in Formula One here at Magny-Cours in France in 1999. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is on lap 71 in the 72-lap race. He's increasing his lead over Mika Hakkinen. Mika Hakkinen would be very disappointed to lose the win, but he's going to finish ahead of his World Championship rival Michael Schumacher and thereby increase his lead in the World Championship.
Well, is this going to rub salt in Damon Hill's wounds or what? If he did pull out of this race like he was suggesting, and it is his final race, just to add very much insult to injury, Frentzen looks like he could well win it in the same car.
And look, Irvine is... we're with Frentzen now. This is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who started his Grand Prix career driving for the Swiss Sauber team in Formula One in 1994. He drove for them in 1995 and 1996. He switched to Williams in 97, where he won the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. He wasn't a happy man.
Sorry, Murray, but he was completely... nearly on opposite lock in the middle of that corner, well out of shape. Mika's dropped back, he's 7 seconds behind now. Hakkinen giving up the fight, so Frentzen on his merry way. Sorry to interrupt, Murray, but he was well out of shape.
That's all right, I was just giving a bit of history to say that he drove for Williams last year, he wasn't a happy man. He joined Jordan this year, and my goodness has he been pleased. 2nd in Australia, 3rd in Brazil. This is going to be 10 World Championship points if he can just bring the Jordan home for these last few corners, and there would be no justice if he could not. Remember, they're getting out into the pit lane now. Eddie Jordan nearly in tears of worry, because Heinz-Harald Frentzen comes out of the right-hander very shortly at Chateau d'Eau. He will then only have the drop down to the chicane, turn 12, turns 13 and 14, to win the Grand Prix here at France in absolutely scintillating form after having fought every inch of the way. And he's out of Chateau d'Eau now. This is an historic moment. Heinz-Harald Frentzen clears the chicane. lines up the last corner, and Jordan and Heinz-Harald Frentzen win in France. Magnificent. Wow, what a French Grand Prix.
Well, it's amazing. Remember, McLaren had it in the bag early on, then it had a big change around and Ferrari looked like the team, then McLaren again, and Jordan ended up winning the race. Barrichello was the only other main contender all the way through. Somehow, Frentzen has come through and won the race.
Indeed he has, with Mika Häkkinen in second position. This is both Jordan's and Heinz-Harald Frentzen's second race. Here is Rubens Barrichello coming home in a worthy third position after having led the race so stalwartly for so long.
Yes, Barrichello on the podium, and well, let's remember one thing. The Jordan team very much won that race because they had the forethought to fill the car up and not have to pit again. That is what won the race. Louise is with Eddie Jordan.
Eddie, what a day. I can't believe it. One Jordan driver, one announced his retirement. The win, first of all.
Well, I think we seem to like the wet weather. I think that's quite obvious. And, I mean, after last week in Canada, Heinz-Harald really, what can I say? It was a good strategic plan. I don't know why, but the pace car just suited us, and we just thought we had enough fuel to get to the end. And strategically from the team, it was a brilliant move. But, I mean, what can you say about Heinz-Harald Frentzen? He never made a mistake all weekend. Truly phenomenal drive.
But what about this news from Damon that this could be his last race? Surely you're not going to let him not appear at Silverstone.
You know, these decisions have to be made by the driver at the time, and I'm aware of what he said. It was reported to me. Damon is truly one of the best people I've ever met, and everybody, but everybody, must respect his wishes, and only he can make that decision. And whatever they are, I support him.
For now, Eddie, back to the celebrations. Well done.
Well, I'll tell you what you can say, Eddie Jordan. You can say that Heinz-Harald Frentzen has become a superstar. As Ian Phillips is as euphoric as Eddie Jordan. We go for a break, but we'll be back for the celebrations.
chargé des relations avec le Parlement et par le président de la Fédération française du sport automobile, M. Jacques Régis. Merci encore à tous. Justement, venir assister aussi nombreux au Grand Prix de l'année prochaine. Le Grand Prix donc sera en 2022. 5, 6, 7 mai, vous étiez en action encore une fois vivant. Plus de 100 000 chiffres précis, 106 942. Merci à tous. Le spectacle a été de tout noter, le Grand Prix. Il y a eu plein de rebondissements. Nous vous rappelons que l'année prochaine, vous serez également avec nous ici à Nevers-Monaco.
Welcome to the top three drivers from a fantastic French Grand Prix. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Mika Häkkinen and Rubens Barrichello. Heinz-Harald, first of all, we have to ask you, when did you decide just to do one stop and how much fuel did you have left at the end?
Well, this is... Well, it's not a decision that I took in this moment when I went into the pits. It was raining quite heavily all of a sudden, and everybody tried to make it on as safe as possible to the pits. But then I noticed that the guys on the refuel were taking a hell lot of time to refuel the car, and I was thinking, when I went out again, the car feels pretty heavy as well. I said, Jesus, how am I going to keep the car on the road with this aquaplaning? I was suffering quite a lot. I noticed that the guys around me must have been less fuel because initially they pulled away quite quickly. But luckily then the pace car came in, and then we had time for the radio conversations to the pits, talking about the strategy, and I knew that I was then pretty heavy on fuel. It was pretty tight. That I had to save a little bit of fuel in one stage to make it to the end, but we have good radio communications, and the communication worked out perfectly.
About 20 laps from the end, you seem to have a nasty moment with one of the arrows at the hairpin. What happened there?
Well, I just, it was very tight, and I pulled in very tight, and then I didn't have any gear, so I don't know what happened. I had to look for gear first, but first I saw that my gearbox was broken, and that was a bit of an adrenaline moment.
Hi, thank you. Mika, I expect that's the most amazing race of your very long career. You went from 14th to 2nd, you spun, went back to 8th, you then got to 1st, and finally you finished 2nd. Talk us through it.
Wow, don't say that. You know, I cannot talk that through the whole race. You know, so many things happened, but what was most important was the commitment. No, not commitment. It's not the right word, but the strength. You know, psychologically starting this race from 14th position, not only for me but also for the team, for the mechanics and engineers. Obviously, we have used it being on front of the row most of the season, and suddenly we're sitting in 14th position. So it was not difficult. It was a new type of situation. So we have to completely build everything again. So, you know, the race was just great. I mean, everybody did the good tactics. The team did a great job. Communication was absolutely perfect. And I was able to push the car on limit. I would say 80% of the race. And when it started raining, that was not one of my best moments. and particularly because I spun, and I lost obviously a lot of time, and that is the obviously reason why I'm sitting here today in second position. But after all, it doesn't matter. It was great fun.
You had a great battle with Rubens. How did you see that?
Well, it's great. It's great to, you know, don't worry, I won't give too many compliments. No, but it has been a day-to-day again, which we can prove the drivers, all of us, we are professional drivers. That means we are not banging wheels each other. Even it is close, but it's not banging wheels each other. We can have a great race without touching. Even it is, like I said, close. And this is exactly what the motor racing should be. And once we are the example also of what a young generation who are racing in go-karts and low formulas. And this is where it should be, not banging wheels or crashing each other. You know, it has to be fair and square. And the Rubens, where he drove today, was fabulous. There was nothing tricky except normal little things, but nothing serious. And same was the other drivers, you know. And you know, it was great fun.
Mika, thanks. Rubens, a great race from you as well, but after leading for so long, are you disappointed with third?
Well, it's mixed emotions. I don't think I am disappointed because I am on the podium. It's to be the second time in the season we are in the podium. So basically, I'm not disappointed. But you know, leading the race, I had that feeling that it could be today. It could be ours today. But when it started to rain heavily, my car was aquaplaning quite a lot. I was lucky not to spin off, and also when it was you know, halfway through after the first stop, when we had some wet practice, because it was going, my car was getting oversteery, so it was quite difficult to drive. I had to concentrate quite a lot, and I was losing time for sure to the McLaren, to the Ferrari, and also to the Jordan. So at the end of the day, third is not a bad place to be today.
Now, you had great battles with both Mika and Michael. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoy it fully. I try to be as correct as possible. I was having a little bit of a trouble with locking rear brakes and oversteering. So it was a great battle, yeah. And I enjoy. I hope to be more and more there, because as having a competitive car, I'm sure we can be there quite often.
Thanks, Rubens. Heinz-Harald, 2 weeks ago, you left Canada after hitting the wall with tremendous force, and we didn't even know if you'd be here. Today, you've won your second Grand Prix and Jordan's second Grand Prix. What are you going to do at Silverstone?
Well, obviously, this is another place, another challenge. But first of all, we have to see. We will introduce again a new step of engine. We will also introduce a modified car. We're gonna have some new aero bits in the car, and I'm looking very optimistic for that race. I mean, to see doing so well at the moment, I feel very proud for the team as well, and I think we are doing a great job at the moment, technical wise, and I think we can keep up there in Silverstone again.
Thank you, Heinz. Thank you, gentlemen. And now, from each of you, a word in your own language, please. Heinz.
Ich weiß zwar nicht genau, was ich jetzt dazu sagen soll, aber mir fehlen da schon die Worte. Ich bin überglücklich, dass ich heute meinen zweiten Sieg feiern konnte für mein neues Team. Ich bin so stolz auf die Leistungen des Teams, die richtige Strategie zu treffen.
Trionfo per Heinz-Harald Frentzen con tutti gli uomini Jordan che a questo punto stanno festeggiando per un successo molto molto bello, ed è un successo bagnato al pari di quello avvenuto lo scorso anno a Spa-Francorchamps. Anche lì fu un gran premio eccezionalmente rocambolesco, con Coulthard tra l'altro protagonista in negativo.
Io direi che questo Gran Premio, loro l'anno scorso, Fabio, furono contenti perché avevano vinto, ma non avevano dei grandi meriti. Invece io direi che oggi hanno avuto veramente dei grandi meriti, perché scegliere la strategia di un solo arresto bisogna proprio avere chiaro quello che si vuole fare. E non dirlo al proprio pilota, perché altrimenti questo ci vuole il coraggio di gestione. Jordan è sempre stato uno che ha avuto coraggio, direi tanto, e oggi l'ha confermato.
Che gli uomini, vedete Mugenonda che stanno entrando proprio a fianco della monoposto di Heinz Ralph Frentzen, questa era T-Car però adrenalinico per vivere questo Gran Premio. Ecco, paradossalmente la partenza non è stata molto movimentata, ma è un eufemismo perché vedete il grande dinamismo con cui si affronta una griglia dove Häkkinen, non dimentichiamolo, era 14esimo, grande recupero da parte del finlandese. Qui siamo proprio a bordo della vettura del campione del mondo, guardate come rischia all'esterno per superare Alexander Wurz.